what do you get when you cross a know-it-all newspaper columnist with an awkward, unsophisticated everyman?
Yeah. Well, I'm just not sure about that right now.
Welcome to Couch and the Rube.
Welcome to Couch and the Rube, our Sunday show presented by our friends at Muskox Quality Flannels. I'm telling you right now, if you do not have a Muskox flannel yet, it is cold as shit in Michigan. There is snow coming down. It is flannel season. And the Black Friday sale for Muskox flannels is continuing through Monday. So if you want to take advantage of some credible deals going on right now, the more you buy, the more you save. Up to $120 off if you buy 4 flannels. 3 flannels, it's $80 off. It just keeps compiling. So get your Christmas gifts now for your family, for yourself. Great time to get a Muskox flannel. Go to gomuskox.com and get your Christmas flannels right now. Jason, how you doing, brother?
I'm not talking about Michigan.
It is cold. What's up, buddy? It's good to see you after a long break. Even though you only do like 3 shows a week, but
It's been a whirlwind, man.
Yeah.
I've been a lot of places. A lot of things have happened.
yeah.
I mean, hung out in Palm Desert. Michigan State lost a football game in ways I have never seen them lose a football game, and then they hired a new coach.
It's a new era. Jim Comparoni. I mean, Jonathan Smith.
There are going to be a lot of regular folks that look like Jonathan Smith, the new Michigan State football coach, including some people think Michael Scott from
No.
doesn't look like him.
No. Jim Comparoni, and that's it.
Okay.
I don't know who else is trying to come up with something, right?
Yeah.
Everybody knows the Pope. Jim Comparoni.
Is that his nickname?
Mad
Pope?
Dog gave him that.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. It didn't stick.
I know. I realized it when I said his nickname. I'm like, shit, only like 10 people know where that came from.
Doesn't bode well for Mad Dog's old listenership in the Lansing area. Well, what are you going to do?
What are you going to do?
Yeah. Well, we've got an eventful show. It's our hot take show, our hot takes and yours.
What are we going to talk about? Nothing great happened.
No, we are going to go to a new format. I decided on Sundays with these Twitter hot takes. I'm going to send out like a Google form for people to enter them in because it's getting to be a bit much. But it's only a bit much because so many people are participating, and that's awesome.
Yes.
So I'm not complaining about that.
But it's only you and I.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. At some point, we should like hire
A lot
an
of
intern.
you, some of me, and yeah.
Yeah. But we are grateful for it, and we are going to dig into our hot takes and yours, of course. Jason, do you want me to go first? Do you want to go first?
We don't have enough time for all of that.
Of course, buddy. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not about Harland Barnett, is it?
No.
Okay, go ahead then.
I really think Harland Barnett should have been the hire, and they're going to regret this.
I'm surprised he didn't hire himself.
He talked about it. He was planning on it.
Oh man.
All right, so Michigan State hires Jonathan Smith, the Oregon State head football coach. It had started. He had been the favorite since I'd say middle of last week, at least in terms of what I had known, and then it all kind of came down over the weekend. And by Saturday mid-afternoon, he was in place, announced as Michigan State's next football coach. I like the hire. No guarantees, obviously, with any hire. But I do think he is the sort of coach that fits Michigan State and that Michigan State needs fit right now. There's a lot of uncertainty in the landscape of college football in terms of how you build a program with NIL, with the transfer portal, and fit matters. Now, he is not a Midwest guy. He doesn't have a lot of ties to the Midwest, and he's going to have to correct that through his staff. And I wouldn't be surprised. Talking to Harland Barnett, I think Barnett will be part of that initial staff to help keep the recruits that are in place and certainly help keep guys who are on the team.
So is that like a 1-year position or?
I don't know what it's going to be. I had a weird conversation with Barnett. Not a weird conversation, just a weird text exchange where I asked him, "Are you on the staff still?" And he said, "Yeah, unless something comes along that's a head coach position somewhere."
Yeah.
And then I asked him if he knew his role yet, and he said not yet. So I tweeted that out, updated the story, and then like an hour later he got back to me and said, "Well, I'm possibly coming back. I haven't talked to Jonathan Smith yet." I'm like, Harlan, that's It's not great. You gotta
man.
a little more. Be helpful to have a little more detail and
What a great guy.
But nonetheless, I do think he'll be on the staff. I think he just felt like he probably overstepped what he was supposed to say, and that'll look. He's a guy.
Can you just hang out with Alan Haller? I mean, does he really need a position or?
Well, he's recruited Cincinnati forever, and they need a guy who can recruit Ohio. I think they need guys who can recruit Michigan. I think Courtney Hawkins is a guy who might wind up on staff. You look at the guys who it sounds like are coming with him. It does not include a receivers coach, so maybe there's a place for Courtney Hawkins. We'll figure all that out. But one of the things I learned, and I think a lot of us learned with the Mel Tucker situation, is that fit is important. And there were areas in which Mel Tucker didn't fit. Now, he may have fit people's dreams in certain ways of being the next Ohio State or Alabama or whatever it might be. And that had been his experience in college football. That's sort of what he was trying to be at Michigan State. And it wasn't really working. There is not ever going to be that sort of NIL support. It's just not going to happen unless Ishbia just decides this is what I'm doing with my money, and I'm just going to keep, and screw the Phoenix Suns and St. Andre and a couple of the other Greg Williams. We're just going to do this. But the overall second-tier donor support, you can have a robust NIL, but it is not going to be Alabama. It's not going to be Ohio State. That's not who you are. It's just not who the community of Michigan State is. It's not what they don't eat, live, love, and breathe this stuff the way they do other places, and that matters. But this is a really good job at Michigan State. It's a place that I think you can win at the highest level. I think you can win consistently, more importantly. And I think that matters in the 12-team playoff. And I think this is a coach who fits Michigan State in the sense that he's a guy who knows how to win without having the biggest brand in the state or the region. He's a guy who knows how to build culture. He's an offensive mind. And he's somebody who has successfully built a program. And people I've talked to about him who are coaches and former coaches, some of them know him a little bit. Many just have watched from afar, think this is a fantastic hire. Not one person has not been impressed by what he's done at Oregon State. And I think there is more proven parts to him than there were to Mel Tucker. We know who he is and how he does it. Now, he will have certain advantages maybe at Michigan State. He did not have at Oregon State. But we know how he builds it, what it will look like a little more. And if you're not thrilled with that, that's fine. But I'm just saying there's at least a little bit of no. I don't think hiring Jonathan Smith is accepting a lower ceiling. And I see comments like, well, he's 34 and 35 or whatever. But he was 18 and 7 in the last 2 years.
Was that on Twitter?
Oh, lots of everything's on
doesn't
Twitter.
count.
Yeah. So I think look, my first impression, it's a really good hire. People I've talked to who in the business, in the coaching profession, say it's a really good hire, which matters more than what I think. That does not mean, however, it'll work for sure. But I think there is a baseline with him that is a guy who knows how to build a program, knows how to get buy-in from players, has done it in this era, transfer portal and everything, and is an offensive mind, first and foremost, a quarterback's guy. So there's a lot of things. I think this is a really strong hire. Could there have been a stronger hire out there? We'll never know. But this, I think, was a really strong hire.
So can you tell us the Urban information, or was there none, or was there anything going on with old Herb? Was he on campus or anything?
No, I mean, the thing
now that everything's kind of over now.
Well, some of the stuff I know I still
die with? No,
I don't know if I'd die with. I don't think Urban Meyer was likely to be the guy for the last few weeks. I don't think he.
But it was fun to think about for a minute. I thought it was the best hire Michigan State could do. Right, Mel Tucker, when he came into Michigan State, you were kind of sold on a dream. There was everything with the pandemic and everything. You couldn't really see everybody. This guy, Jonathan Smith, you've seen it at Oregon State, what he's done. I get it, the record isn't great. But inside out, that offensive line was unbelievable this year. He's bringing that O-line coach. It just feels like there's competence coming into the university, and I think that's what's going to get people excited.
I think competence is a great word there, man. Like that's what the program needs right now. It needs energy, it needs juice, it needs trust that the staff knows what they're doing in building a program.
I know that sounds crazy, but yeah, it would be nice.
I think people need that right now.
And watching him get off the plane and interview with Fred Hume and everything, you just see he's a guy, he just boom, 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 ready to go. So you have confidence after seeing stuff like that. Because what else are you going to do? You have to be all in with this guy, right? Or do you not have to?
No, and I think sometimes when you and this happens all the time at all these schools, when you go from one coach to the next, you want some contrast. People would not have accepted somebody who was selling, NFT coins and smoking cigars right now. That wasn't going to work. The next coach. Now, sometimes there's too much of an overreaction of that. You get this defensive mentality, so you go get an offensive coach. You go get a disciplinarian, now you get a players coach. All that stuff gets overdone sometimes. But I do think Michigan State needed and not that Mel Tucker wasn't, about the business of trying to win football games and building a program. I'm not saying he wasn't. But you need somebody who I think is just a little bit of a different fit. And this guy, Jonathan Smith, seems to be it. Now, I have never spoken to Jonathan Smith in my life. I will have a much better impression on what I think he'll become or can become as I see him operate, as I have conversations with him, which I think will begin Tuesday. It sounds like at noon is the introductory presser. So we'll have a better feel for things. But my initial impression, based on people I've talked to and the what I've seen from him in terms of building a program, is this is a really good hire at Michigan State. And it was, I think it's safe hire is almost a critical word that doesn't come off right, but it's a smart hire. I think this is less likely to end poorly than a lot of other hires. There's less risk to this hire.
I was really surprised on the timing of it as well, because I was asked, do you think before the weekend is over, Michigan State will hire a coach? And I just don't trust them, because I think that would be the right move. I just didn't trust them at the time, but they did it on a Saturday right during Michigan and Ohio State game. So it was a wild timing there.
Well, I had heard this was done while I was in Palm Springs. But
the
then
LSJ jet,
but then
couch down here.
You then you get the comments coming from Jonathan Smith at Oregon State that no decision's been made. I don't think that was necessarily.
He said he had to sleep on it one more night.
Yeah. So, but you never know when somebody could change their mind. Something could be done and somebody can change their mind.
Sure.
And so you're always aware of that. I think they had zeroed in on him. They'd had the conversations. They knew what they were. And for him, you think about it. I get that Oregon State was his alma mater. Michigan State has a lot more to offer, but the biggest thing Michigan State has to offer is a Power 5 conference. You're basically accepting being the head of one of the halves of the mid-major programs if you stay there, and I think that's tough. And when you're 44 years old and you've got 20 years left of career at least, and you got to think about what you want to do. Do you want to try and take a step and take another program somewhere else? Do you want to stay at your alma mater for a career, and can you do 15 more years there and be a legend? And who knows? But Michigan State just has a lot more possibilities for somebody who I think wants to see what those possibilities will entail.
And that's the question we'll never have answered, is if Oregon State, if the Pac-12 didn't disband like they did, would he have stayed at Oregon State?
He might answer that. I mean, he might be blunt enough to. He'll certainly be asked it. I mean, I'll ask him that, because I think that's a fair question. And I also don't think that is a knock on anybody. It's not a knock on Michigan State. That is his alma mater. He played quarterback there.
Yeah, 4-year starter or whatever. Yeah.
Took him to a Fiesta Bowl. He had something going. If the Pac-12 is the best conference in college football right now, and if they had still existed, I don't know, but it certainly, I think, a really smart hire. Initial impressions. We'll get into a lot more during your hot takes. What is your first hot take?
Well, after the Bears game, we were celebrating like that, but I did kind of yell in the same way on Thanksgiving, Graham. Holy shit. The Lions. I have to say, I was really surprised by that loss and the way it happened. And I know the score isn't indicative of what really happened in that game, because I did go to Lambeau. I did watch this team dismantle Green Bay. And then I saw Jordan Love sitting there and be like, we had this game marked on the calendar. Did you? Did you really? And the defense, I understand. And I've switched my position on Aaron Glenn, because you know what, Graham? Having a game on a Thursday and then doing a show on a Sunday, you have time to reflect, to relax. And, of course, everybody wants Aaron Glenn fired. But is the real question, should it be to Brad Holmes and say, why didn't we go out and get anybody out for that defensive line? It's one of the most embarrassing defensive lines. I mean, without Hutch, can you imagine that without Hutchinson? And I understand people are critical of Hutchinson as well. But the guy can't take on 3 guys by himself. So, it's, for the people that want to sit there and fire Aaron Glenn, I think it's just because there's a little bit of the same old Lions mentality to watching that defense. Really never, they force a third down, they give up third downs. It's just the way that the Bears and the Packers ran plays against the Lions. Jesus Christ, the Lions defensively. I just don't want to sit there and jump on Aaron Glenn. But the thing with Brad Holmes, and I know he's hit on every draft pick, but to not go out and Chase Young or something like that, I think he needs to kind of let the fan base kind of know. Maybe he doesn't have to at all, but I think it would be better if we kind of knew why were we standing pat? Because we have a little open window, and Graham, you talk about it a lot. You have open windows in the NFL, and you watch these teams, you watch general managers sit there and throw everything they have at it because they see we have an opportunity right now to go on a little run, and you're sitting there at 8-2 or whatever, and you have an opportunity to win people are talking about you as a Super Bowl contender, and to not go out at the trade deadline just confused me. But that Packers loss, man. I saw the Sharps with a 7.5. I just thought it was bullshit. I know that, with my Honolulu blue fucking glasses that I wear watching the game, but I really thought that Packers game was going to be different than it was. But I'm not panicking yet, Graham.
Yeah, I think what happened is you found out you can't trust the Lions.
No.
And that's a little discouraging. And
after the Bears game, I kind of felt that way too, but the way, I know it's 29-22, like I said, it's just the way that game happened with the 3 fumbles and Jared Goff not playing that well. But
Goff needs to get his shit together. You can't have 5 minutes at the end of the previous game be the reason. He has played poorly for basically 115 minutes the last 2 games.
Yeah.
And that's not good.
No.
And so I think one of the things people talk about him long term is you wait to see how this season ends. Because if the Jared Goff we've seen most of the last 2 weeks exists too many more times before the playoffs, and then again in the playoffs, you're going to have some real decisions to make. Now, here's the thing about Jared Goff. He's under contract next year. You don't have to do anything. And I think there is a chance that they don't do anything if this continues, because he still may be your best quarterback option. But I wouldn't bet on that right now, or what we're seeing from him.
But I can understand, like we've talked about before as well, with Goff and his agent, I can understand you don't want to treat Jared Goff like a dickhead, because the quarterbacking situation in the NFL, it's scary. And the question is going to be, if not Jared Goff, who? Hendon Hooker? You want to go into next year with Hendon Hooker? So as I'm not as excited, I get it. It's going to go up and down with these long-ass seasons about Jared Goff. Is he Mr. Ass, or is he not? But I don't know what we can do differently. I don't know where we can go out and get someone that's better than Jared Goff.
Well, it's a great quarterback draft. If you decide he's not your future, you do something this year. If you don't think that, then you don't, and it's that simple. Yeah. And you got to trust Brad Holmes a little on that. And if
and the offensive line getting pushed around, it's just
not great.
The NFL is fucking weird. I get it. Weird things happen, but just when you see a unit like the offensive line playing so well, you see articles. Nick Baumgartner, he's got an article in The Athletic about the tightness of the guys, and they just go out and get their ass beat.
Yeah. It was a discouraging, and I think, and this will lead into my second hot take, I think what happened with the Lions on Thursday bled into the reaction to Michigan State basketball, because people were ready for a fight. They were not going to be amused by anything other than perfection. And when Michigan State looked like it didn't belong on the same court as Arizona for the first 10 minutes of the game, and A.J. Hoggard played as poorly as he did early, it was like, oh, what is this? Because they did not look like they belonged on the same court as Arizona. And I think I wrote a column after that game about how of all the games they've played, and there have been some disappointing ones and discouraging ones this season already, this was actually the least discouraging, because I don't know if everybody has like when I watched Arizona play, and I was out in Portland a year ago when I saw UConn run through the PK-85. I saw the same type of team. It was like, whoa, that, and I'd seen them play a little bit before. My impression of them this year is they are the best team in college basketball. I laid down a couple futures bets on them to win the national title. I laid one down on them to win the Pac-12, which is still like plus 180 or something like that. I think that's a phenomenal team. And so if you can beat that team, then you can win a national title. And Michigan State in the second half had that team on their heels. So there are lots of things to be concerned about with Michigan State basketball. I'm about to get into one of them. But it wasn't a game to be discouraged about their ceiling. The discouragement is, if you look at Michigan State over the years, the times that Tom Izzo has had a team that was in the Final Four or pushed for the Final Four or should have been, whatever it was, had a team that really had a chance, what they had was a guard they could count on, mostly. And you cannot count on A.J. Hoggard. Now, he may get hot for a few weeks, and that may be your hope in the postseason. And maybe in the Big Ten it does happen. He does put it together. But it just doesn't seem like it's going to. He was really good for about 6 minutes in the second half. And then he was, at the end, not the guy. He was taking the wrong shots at the wrong time at the very end as well. At the beginning, he was awful. And I know he got in some foul trouble. Izzo didn't put him in. It's the longest I've seen Izzo bench him. If he'd played well, Izzo would have put him in with 2 fouls. I'm pretty confident in it. But the problem for Michigan State, and you see it play out there against Arizona, is that you can't live without AJ and you can't live with him. He's a difference maker. He took over that game for a little bit. He's, a guy like Tyson Walker, as wonderful player as he is too small for certain things. And you see Hoggard with his size and physical ability, the best chance Michigan State has to take over a game in certain settings, and yet also can be absolutely awful. And that's just not a recipe to win long term. So you got a couple of options. Either that works and he somehow stops being who he's been, or he gets hot late, and I think that's still a chance that it happens. We saw him play well in the NCAA tournament. Or Jeremy Fears, because I do think Fears has a lot of the intangibles that A.J. Hoggard does not, in terms of leadership, in terms of seeing it, in terms of consistency and approach. And the problem for him is, can he get to a place where he's actually a better option on the court and his ceiling is high enough to make him a better option on the court? It isn't right now. It's just not. And I don't know if that can happen within this season. So the problem with the game against Arizona is they should have won that game in certain ways. They could have won that game in certain ways. And yet, even if they were to beat a team as good as Arizona, the A.J. Hoggard-led Michigan State team we're watching is, A, not talented enough, B, not consistent enough, and A.J. Hoggard isn't consistent enough to win 6 straight games. You're not going to win a national championship, no matter how good you put together a run in the second half, no matter what your veteran sweat equity is, no matter, this isn't an overwhelming talented team in terms of like pros, but this is for a college basketball, this is a pretty good talented team that when A.J. Hoggard is 100% right and they're playing as well as they can play, can beat anybody on a given day. The problem is they're not going to beat 6 anybody's on 6 given days with that point guard from what we've seen so far. And that's either going to change or they're going to fall short, or it's going to have to be a different point guard and a different approach. And that's going to be the thing to watch is they go into the Big Ten here and into December.
And basically that was my hot take, because I do take notes over if we have an extended period of time off to make sure I don't forget anything. And I did put this in there about Hoggard. I just think it's going to be an interesting situation, like you mentioned, because I think Jeremy Fears could be the better option. But the thing with Izzo is, like, will A.J. Hoggard just fall off the map if he's benched for Fears? Or, I mean, it's going to be tough to juggle for Izzo, right?
Totally. And that's part of the problem is
because you said you can't do it now, but, like, so when do you think, how long can you wait?
To me, you wait until you don't even contemplate the decision until Jeremy Fears has taken a step to where his best is up there with Hoggard's best. Because Jeremy Fears right now, you could play him 30 minutes a game, and he probably should play a little more, but you could play him 30 minutes a game, and you weren't beating Arizona with him playing 30 minutes a game yet. And you almost did with A.J. Hoggard playing late. So that's really what it comes down to. As he develops, you keep an eye on that. And if you've got to make what could be a difficult move in the locker room or with Hoggard, you do it, and you don't spare feelings for the sake of trying to win late. The interesting thing with Hoggard in the locker room in Palm Springs or Palm Desert, he's as accountable as anybody, and he's willing to talk as anybody. Like, Tyson Walker's, he hates to lose. He's annoyed that they've lost. He really didn't want to, everybody's in a really rough place and frustrated by losing, and I understand that. But Hoggard he's articulating what went wrong. He understands. He's speaking about the accountability to himself. Like he's in a different place than he was a year ago in terms of that. It's almost like he's not listening to himself. Like he understands the problem. And I think that is a step. And I don't think for that reason, because of his talent and the way he speaks it, it's not worth entirely giving up on him. And because of who he can be at his best, they do have some problems on the roster that aren't A.J. Hogarth's fault. They don't have enough shooters. The court is not, I don't think, as spread out as it was for him the last couple of years, even when they weren't a great shooting team 2 years ago. He seemed to have an easier time getting in the paint in certain ways. And so it's not a roster that – it's a roster that's got some issues. And A.J. Hogarth is not a guy who from, 15 feet out, you want taking the biggest shots. And so how do you work the final minutes of games with the ball in his hands or the ball? Walker is the flip side of that. Walker can create his own 15 to 25-foot shot. But Walker, when he gets in the paint, gets swatted because he's small. And, you don't have a perfect guy there. Maybe it would be in an ideal situation. You get Akins on the move toward the rim. But you don't have a perfect situation. And Hogarth has to be better at creating for others in those settings. Just something to watch. I think it was one of those things. It's not a discouraging game. It shouldn't be compared to all the others, but also one of those games where you go, boy, you can't live with him, you can't live without A.J. Hogarth, and that's a problem.
Do you think Xavier Booker would be farther along than he is right now? Do you think Izzo is kind of shocked by it, or did he think Xavier Booker was going to – because he didn't even play against Arizona.
I think they knew he was going to be a project to some degree like this. I mean, he's got a lot of skill. He's not like a project like, let's hope this big man can actually move.
Sissoko.
But he's not strong, and he does get lost a little bit, and they kind of knew that. Cohen Carr gets lost a little bit, but he's built like a grown man. And so you're able to get away with it. And I thought Cohen Carr played really well. And I think Izzo did. And their small ball lineup actually was fairly effective late for a minute. And I thought, Malik Hall had a couple moments. There was one moment where they really needed a bucket, and he just went down there and pounded the guy in the post and scored and got an and one. But Malik Hall has his limitations. The problem is their whole roster, everybody has their limitations. Most people do in college basketball. But they have enough if they can make it all fit. Everybody's got strengths that are good enough to really get somewhere. But you got to have a point guard, and you got to have an offense that
need a shooter.
Well, the other thing, and I do think this is an Izzo thing that's driven me nuts for years, and you're going to have to pay attention to a little more. I think they substitute too quickly. You don't get the same five guys on the floor for more than about 90 seconds ever. And I don't think that's always ideal for a team that's trying to find a rhythm. Yeah. And that may be something they've got to look at too.
It's impossible to get a flow going though. Right?
Unless you're already in it. Unless you already have, right. It's not ideal. And you don't have enough shooters that, and who gets the ball where changes based on who comes in. And you don't get a great feel. But the problem is they don't have enough guys who have earned like extended minutes. I do wonder if they played A.J. Hogarth, if they told A.J. before the game, you are playing 30 minutes, foul trouble, whatever it is, you're going to play 30 minutes. You're coming out here, and you're coming out here, and you're coming back in here. You're playing 30 full minutes a game. There's part of me that thinks he would give his best performance. There's part of me that thinks he is bugged by having Jeremy Fears right behind him, by
keep him off the court by playing well.
Right, exactly. You're a senior. You're a leader. You ought to. He's got to be better. It's largely on him. He didn't play well or consistent enough in the last game, and hasn't this season. And then he has a moment in the second half where he just took over the game for a few minutes, and that's.
So he needs to be set off before the game or something. Or
I don't know what the
motivation. I mean, shit.
Yeah, it was not a game though. I don't think to be discouraged, but not a game to feel great about them winning.
If you look at the stats, I mean, the teams are kind of similar, and you're kind of like, if you didn't watch the game, you're looking at that going like, well, how did MSU lose that game? But
MSU looks like a team that is going to be a 5 seed and is going to have to get hot in the postseason, and will have the goods to do it, but it will have to happen for them to make it. They don't look right now like a team that is going to be consistent enough to earn a top 2 or 3 seed, and it's not just the losses that are piling up. They've lost to mostly good teams, ranked teams. They're going to a chance for quality wins in the Big Ten. The team I'm watching is going to lose games in the Big Ten to teams they should beat, and that's also a little concerning. What is your third hot take?
Nah, I don't have one.
Okay.
We can just get
third hot take right here.
All right.
Kirk Ferentz
Oh, yeah.
has a chance to become a Michigan State legend.
And Brian.
23-point underdogs going into the Big Ten championship game.
You mean covering the spread, or they have to win?
Oh,
The W, huh?
Yeah. To be a legend, you'd have to win. Because think about, I just want to ask you, if Kirk Ferentz in Iowa and Brian Ferentz and everything that Iowa is, and Iowa's celebrating a lot of bullshit right now because they're just lucky to be in a crappy division. You know, if the Red Wings played in the AHL, they'd look good too. But if they were to win that and Michigan were to be kept out of the playoff, because they would be out of the playoff, this is where their non-conference schedule would hurt them. That one loss with as many good teams that are around college football right now, and the decisions are going to have to be made on Oregon and Washington and things like that. If they lost Iowa, they would be out. What would the vibe toward Kirk Ferentz forever? Would he be a hero in East Lansing?
I don't know about hero, but I think Brian could come back for another spin, though.
Although
He's not great with ultimatums with the 26 points per game. But yeah, it's not going to happen. What are we talking
They're
about?
going to get hammered.
Iowa's
They're
complete
gonna get
ass.
hammered. They're 23-point dogs. The over/under is 35, and I'm tempted to.
So is Harbaugh going to be able to coach then?
Yeah, he's coaching.
Nice.
Yeah, he's coaching, and you know what? He served his time. That was an impressive win over Ohio State. It's a really good Ohio State team. An impressive win, really was. I know a lot of Michigan State fans don't want to hear that, but they all feel it.
I mean, it was a great victory. I'm thinking of Ryan Day's red face with his coloring of his beard and shit. Honestly, kudos, you guys. Yeah, you guys kicked their ass.
There's more Ryan Day and Michigan talk to come here in the hot take. Should we dig into these listener hot takes?
Let's do it.
All right.
Eric Schultz up first. Number 1, least yards in school history. 6 times more yards in the Red Box Bowl than there was Friday night. We won't see another coach as bad as Jay Johnson at MSU for 50 years. 50. 2, MSU hired a hell of a good coach, whether he's a good fit, whether he can recruit the Midwest, and whether we can put a functioning NIL system in place are still big questions. 3, if Aiden Childs follows Smith here, keeping Levitt isn't as big of a deal as we initially thought.
It's going to be interesting to see his roster at Oregon State and how many guys jump in the portal and how many of those guys do come to Michigan State. We have not seen around here, and you've seen a little of this in the last couple of years, but in the portal era, when a sitting head coach leaves for another job, Power 5 job to Power 5 job, has not happened a ton. So you get a roster that could help Michigan State immediately that's now in flux and maybe looking for another place. Now, a lot of those guys are West Coast guys. Do they want to come out to East Lansing? They got one dude on their whole roster, a defensive back out of Chicago, who's from the Midwest. So, it's not as easy as, hey, let's just go to East Lansing. But I do think you will probably see at least a handful of guys from that Oregon State roster that make their way to Michigan State. And you're right, there are a lot of questions. So I think the functioning NIL system is a big one. And
it's got to be tough to leave Corvallis, though.
You been
nice
to Corvallis?
Weather? Oh, yeah.
It's not great.
No?
No.
See, I'm not hard to please. I just like nice weather and a TV and a couch or something.
It snowed.
Football on.
Certainly the first snow that stuck was his arrival here, which I'm sure his wife and kids were like, geez, what is this?
Well, wait till you see the contract, I'm guessing. Dominic next. Number 1, Smith is a great hire. Imagine how great he'll do without miserable penis terrorist Jay Johnson calling plays. Forget the 2018 offense will be prolific take. Your piece on Jay Johnson labeling him as competent last year should get us all behind the paywall for a year. Extra. Oh, wait.
That should be the last thing.
I got it. 2. Here's a thought. Ready, Graham? Here goes. Maybe we learn to just simply say goodbye and stop acting like a fucking soup kitchen. Yeah, I don't really give a fuck if Harland kissed his wife outside of Wells Hall in 1986. Stop. We are not a fucking charity, Graham. 3. And chill with this kept it together narrative. Are we kidding? Fair or foul, that product was shameful, and Harland shouldn't retain a paycheck for costing us Sam Levitt and not masturbating on Zoom with an assault survivor. We scored 3 points combined against the Big 3. Bonus. David Schuster and John U. Bacon getting that W today is precisely why I will never step foot in church again. God is not real.
Yeah, no, there's an argument that David Schuster, I don't know if anybody else follows him on Twitter, but it's something that nobody he roots for should do well. I would say that. That guy is, oh my God, he's annoying.
What a reputation to have. Anyone you root for, man.
I just can't imagine doing that. I mean, he maybe,
I saw one tweet, that was enough.
Maybe he made enough money in his past life, but I can't imagine anybody hiring him with his social media history anywhere. I mean, I would not hire him to do anything near me. Okay, let's get into he's not wrong that sometimes you have to make hard decisions no matter how much you like somebody or somebody's done some decent things. You're right. It is not a soup kitchen, and these guys have been well compensated. I think there is value in Harland Barnett at Michigan State next year. I think, I know that there were recruits who they may not see it the way Dominic and most people do, that thought if Harland Barnett's coming back as the head coach, I will still come there. They're 17-year-old kids, Now, 17-year-olds are stupid. We all know that, right? But nonetheless, you built a relationship with a certain person who's there. Harland Barnett is good at showing he cares for people. He's been good at recruiting Ohio and Cincinnati and places like that over the years, some of the better players Michigan State has had at key times. And you're trying to keep your own roster together next year to some extent, and you're trying to keep some of the recruits together. And I do think that he is one of those people that helps do that. I think that Courtney Hawkins is another who could help do that. And I don't think I don't know what his role will be, but I don't think having Harland Barnett on Michigan State staff, in fact, I think it's a benefit to Jonathan Smith in the short term. Now, whether long term that winds up being a thing, who knows? It'll depend on the fit with each other and the fit for Harland and whether it works. But in the initial transition, when you have like 3.5 weeks to build a staff and a roster, recruit your own roster and bring in new recruits, I think it makes a heck of a lot of sense.
Maybe next. Number one, this season was exhausting, but prepared MSU fans for the excitement of a new coach. 2, Michigan can't be the East champ. The Big Ten will remove them. And 3, Alan Haller is a great AD. 1, for not bowing to the public's urban pressure. And 2, wanting to fire Mel earlier when he knew Mel effed a vendor.
Yeah, I mean, Haller's looked good here on some fronts. I think one is he moved quickly. He got somebody who looks competent, and it could not work. But and if it doesn't, Alan Haller will ultimately pay the price for that. But this looks like a pretty smart hire, and it fits the mold a little bit of what he's hired and built with other coaches in terms of age, in terms of building programs elsewhere, and things like that. It looks like a good, quick move. Looks like a competent move by him is what it looks like. The fact that this is all done tidy, the guy's on a plane on Sunday, and the press conference is Tuesday, and it was done on Saturday, and the previous staff was fired by 11:30 a.m. on Saturday. Like, all of that is a guy having his ducks in a row and getting and executing well at the end.
Dan Grafe next. Number 1, Jonathan Smith is a great hire, but with no Midwest ties, there is some reason to be concerned. 2, my son didn't wear his Lions jersey on Thursday. That's why we lost. I talked to the wife, and he will wear it at every game from now on. And 3, Ryan Day is a coward.
I love it. He's going to have to wear that jersey. You can't, whatever you were wearing for that game, Packers game, you don't wear it again. Like,
we blame the sun.
I got a Barry Sanders jersey in 1995 for Christmas, and we raced home from upstate New York to watch them play in a playoff game against the Eagles, because we didn't think there were too many cousins, too much commotion. We didn't think we would be able to properly focus on the game if we watched. So we got up early. We get on the road. It's like a 4:00 kickoff. Scott Mitchell, Herman Moore, Brett Perriman, Johnny Morton. They'd won 7 straight games to close the regular season. Would have been hosting a playoff game if not for Yancey Thigpen and the Steelers dropping the pass against the fucking Packers. That still hurts. And they might have won a Super Bowl that year. However, you get back, my Barry Sanders jersey is draped over the back of the couch. I put it on, and everything goes wrong. Everything goes wrong. And I may have worn that Barry Sanders jersey like once or twice as a teenager after that. Certainly never wore it again during a Lions game, because it was absolutely cursed. So that is
Blame
a story almost worth telling, presented by our friends at Midtown Brewing Company, 402 South Washington Avenue. If you're looking for a place to take a date, or if you get a chance, you want to take Jonathan Smith somewhere, impress him, show him the Lansing area, the best sort of food-drink combination, good vibe, take him to Midtown Brewing Company. He'll love it. You'll score points. Trivia Tuesdays, brunch on the weekends, great date night, any night of the week. Go to midtownbrewing.net to check out their menu.
Have you seen the Barry documentary yet?
I need to see it. I have not.
Yeah.
Is it fantastic?
Yep.
Yeah, I need to see it.
Scott Mitchell doesn't like it, but
He doesn't like it because he looks bad in it?
well, he went on. You didn't see the face. He went on Facebook and went on a rant about fuck these guys and fuck Barry, pretty much.
Whoa.
And fuck Wayne Fonts and.
What?
Yeah, because in the doc, you'll see. It just makes
Okay.
it seem like it was on Scott Mitchell or something. I don't know. He took it a little too hard, but I can kind of understand where he's coming from. But
I mean, I do remember he was the one throwing the pick sixes against a lot of teams from the end zone.
right. But then he's like, well, Barry, what did he do in this? He rattled off years and stuff and in the playoffs. And how many yards did he have? So
You're not going to win an argument about Barry with most of the Lions
on
fans.
Facebook?
Yeah. No worries.
Sorry,
No,
Scott.
Yeah.
Michael Warhite next. Number 1, I'm glad MSU hired Jonathan Smith because he's an offensive-minded coach. As you stated beforehand, even if the Spartans lose, we are exciting. The fan base will be happy. And after the Penn State debacle, I think we are craving some type of competent offensive schemes. Would you agree? And 2, by the way, James Franklin is ass.
Is an ass.
He's ass and an ass.
Yeah. Two things at once. I would agree. You get to a point where competence becomes very important, and it's an underrated. Now, I think one of the things about Mel Tucker that people like so much in 2021 is it wasn't just it looked like a really competent operation, and that I'll never entirely understand where that fell apart, because even when they didn't have
phone call,
a few places, but even when they didn't have they had some injuries and they didn't have quite the talent. They didn't have Kenneth Walker. One of the things they lost in 2022 was that air of competence, and that was a little baffling. And people talk about the column I wrote about Jay Johnson, but that was written on the heels of competence. And Jay Johnson was a guy that the narrative around Jay Johnson at that point was much more in line with that column than where it wound up a year and 2 years later.
Yeah, we don't have enough time for all of that.
Matt Boone, number 1. This was the longest, worst football season I have ever seen. Hopefully, Smith can take advantage of the MSU advantages this offseason. And 2, MSU basketball is very frustrating, but they have done better in big games, even in losses. And 3, MSU football not going Urban Meyer route and picking John Smith will hopefully be better the second time. Oh, that's right, John Smith.
Yeah.
What's his middle name?
It's C. It's not
John
with an L.
C. Smith.
Yeah. John. Yeah,
Let's
it's
go
not
by
John
Jonathan
L.
Smith then. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, it was the longest, worst football season because in a lot of ways, the hope was killed early. The hope was killed. Obviously, you have Mel Tucker getting fired, but then you have the Washington game, and right away and that's what made this year so bad. It's like week 3, it ain't good.
Season's over.
The next 2 say both from Kurt Wisniewski.
Yeah.
And I really apologize because they're not both from Kurt Wisniewski. Somebody else, if you recognize your takes, they are your takes, but they're 2 different takes.
Damn, Kurt gets 6 of them.
Yeah, and Kurt only did 3 of them. He didn't break the rules, so I apologize. I just wrote Kurt Wisniewski's name twice.
So which 3 are his?
I have no idea.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Kurt Wisniewski. Number 1, first offensive coach for MSU since the Cosby decade. 2, this MSU coach hire will retain all competent players on the team. And 3, Haller letting the entire coaching staff go at 11:30 after the loss is delicious and shows he's no bullshit AD.
It was really interesting to be there on Friday night at Ford Field, and Haller's in the press conference with and sitting in the back when Harland Barnett is basically staking the claim that he'll be the next coach. When he was asked, what would you tell the next coach? He said, well, I'll be looking in the mirror. That was the hardest part because and maybe he kind of knew. I think he had to know, but
Do we know for sure, 100%?
It was tough to watch that part because I thought the rest of the press conference he was pretty good. He was good about what Michigan State needs to be and how you build it there. and what he said to the guys post-game. I thought there were some really strong moments, and he hasn't always had the strongest press conferences, and it was a strong press conference other than that, and that was really painful to watch.
Was it your column about him and his wife that maybe got him thinking he could be the head coach? Maybe it's your fault.
No, I did. I was very careful, and you'll see that in that column, I did not. That was not really a column; it was more a feature. I did not take any positions.
Sorry, feature. I don't know the lingo.
Well, no, it's
journalists.
For me, most of what I write is considered a column, but I did not. Was not going to advocate for him to get the job because I didn't believe he deserved the job. If I thought he should deserve, and if I thought there's a couple things in play here. If I thought he was in play to get the job, like he might be hired, I would have written the column that he shouldn't be hired. Because there were a few red flags for me. One was the comments with Michael Levitt. There were other things, just how they performed. But they didn't need me piling on that because I knew he wasn't going to get the job. I also wasn't going to advocate for him getting the job because that's not what I felt. And you have to be true. I can tell his story without saying, and he should be the next head coach.
All right. Kurt Wisniewski again.
Or somebody else.
Number one, it's too early for me to be concerned. Jonathan Smith leaves after his first good year. I'll be happy having a coach that wins enough other schools want him. 2, Jonathan Kim was this year's MVP. And 3, Ryan Day is the new John Cooper. Should probably go to the NFL as a position coach now.
The thing about Ryan Day, and a lot of people think he's on the hot seat or whatever.
Who are they going to get?
He's so good.
Herb going to come back?
Yeah. By the way, this was Plus Size Volleyball Dad. Who these were from. I apologize, Matt. Ryan Day is a phenomenal coach. This is a bad stretch, and it's probably the best Michigan will ever be, given that Harbaugh may not be around. Who knows what's going to happen with any sanctions? They lose a lot of key guys. This was a great Michigan team. He had a really, really good Ohio State team. They could have won a national title. If a kick went in, they would have won a national title last year. You're not gonna change out Ryan Day. I don't think he's John Cooper, but I get the reference, certainly.
But how many times can you lose to Michigan in a row, though? Like, even if you are a good coach.
Even if you're like 36-3 in the Big Ten and the only 3 losses are Michigan?
Yeah.
That's a good question.
I mean, if he loses next year, that's 4 in a row.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry. Something has to change at some point. But
maybe if you get to 5. 5 is the number.
All right.
I would say that is the number.
All right, John, next. Number 1, Alan Haller should be complimented for the tight-lipped nature of the coaching search. 2, MSU should return to Ford Field for the last home game of the season every other year. The environment in and around the game Friday night was good. 3, excited for the Smith hire. I feel like a lot of people are going to say that.
That they're excited for the Smith hire?
Yeah.
There's a lot of that.
Right.
And I think
why shouldn't you be?
Yeah, no, it's not a hire you go. Like Jason Candle, I think people would have had to try to convince themselves. It would not have worked. Yeah. But a lot of people are like, this guy did some decent things at Oregon State, got that program going, looks like he knows how to do competence, right? It's competence, and I think that's
Narduzzi.
What people are really looking for. So yeah, no, I don't.
Can you imagine if they hired Narduzzi, though, that plane ride and then the video?
Would not have.
People just shitting on it.
It would not have gone well. The idea of the game being at Ford Field again, people are going to remember this, so it's going to be hard to do it at Ford Field. It's going to be like, well, that was the game that they had like record-setting bad offense, and they got just hammered again, and because it had the setup to be a cool event. The crowd was good. It was a 32-degree night outdoors. Nobody wants to be outdoors for that shit. So. Although if it's on Saturday, it's a little bit warmer.
It's pretty simple. If the team's good, people will go. It's that simple.
Yeah, and
if the team was any good, Ford Field, I would have won.
Here's the other thing that's going to change. I do not believe college football will end on Thanksgiving weekend after a couple more years, too. So that's not even going to be an option. You're not going to play a Friday night if it's a regular week either. So it's going to wind up. I can see them doing it again, it being a once every 5 or 10 year type thing, and because I don't think it's a bad deal. But it certainly didn't work in this specific instance, but I'm not sure anything worked. It wasn't going to be pretty if it had been at Spartan Stadium, for sure.
Andrew Gauthier next. Number 1, reading Graham Couch's 3 quick takes turned out to be the most effective way to put my 5-week-old nephew to sleep. Excuse me. 2, on perhaps the greatest sports week of the year, the only good thing that happened was a new football coach. And 3, Colorado drivers are awful. Do they hog the left lane? Do they drive 20 miles under the speed limit?
Yeah, I mean, I've never been there. I know certain places drivers are awful, and you see the difference. I hear New Mexico is supposed to be like the worst drivers everywhere. Yeah. The greatest sports week of the year, the only good thing that happened was a new football coach from Michigan State. Yeah, I mean, it should be a fun sports week, and the Lions really set a bad tone. It wasn't just they lost; they just looked like the old Lions. It was awful.
It should be fun if you root for the right teams.
Yes,
it just happens you root for all of the teams. Your team's lost.
Yeah. By the way, this is this Thursday is Groovy Donut. Speaking of Andrew Monica, inaugural day of giving. That's when they're open this Thursday, 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. 100% of the proceeds will benefit child and family charities. Dollars for Dyslexia, Project Fish, KCS Angels, and Junior Achievement. So if you've never been, or you're just looking for a reason for a donut, not that you need a reason for a fucking donut. You should always want a donut. Groovy Donuts, 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. this Thursday on Lake Lansing Road in East Lansing, and also in Williamston. 100% of the proceeds, their inaugural day of giving, going to a number of really good charities. So a good time to get yourself a donut.
Eric Smith next. Number 1, Jonathan Smith is a solid hire. Controversy-free, but possibly a long rebuild. 2, my biggest fear going into this basketball season was how poorly some of the teams with the highest expectations performed. And 3, I'm just short on enthusiasm for another 7 through 10 seed, especially after.
I cut out that makes sense. I know what I cut out here, and I apologize, Eric. But I don't think you're going to wind up at a 7 or 10 seed. I do think Michigan State basketball is going to finish higher than that. But it certainly right now
you
doesn't.
Promise? You promise that?
Should we do a bet?
I just want you to promise.
I'm not promising anything. I'm not promising anything with AJ Hoggard. That's not I'm not going to be in the business of promising success with
it's
Hoggard.
Hoggard and Izzo, because Izzo will let it go on too long, maybe, possibly. Nate C. next. Number 1, if Scum gets to play in the postseason, then every team should do the same thing they did, and I'll be available for MSU in about 7 years. 2, we are a hockey school. Anyone who isn't following the team can just be miserable. And 3, even when the Lions are good, they are still disappointing.
Michigan State hockey, I mean, this week they took 3 points against Minnesota, split the 3 points, 2 overtime games. Good Minnesota program. Obviously, last week was terrific against Wisconsin. It's they're a top 10 team right now, and it's not like they're doing it every week. It is, if you're looking for something to feel really good about with MSU right now, there are a number of things. There are a number of good programs, but MSU hockey is where the buzz is, and get yourself to Munn.
Ryan Schultz next. Number 1, Ryan Day shouldn't be fired, but he should be on a one-weekend hot seat next November, no matter what else happens. 2, Jaden Akins does some really nice things, but media folks who touted him as an elite-level player all offseason need to own that. So far, they were wrong, Couch included. 3, I know Graham loves it when people don't say something publicly, but then later say they knew it all along. So I've been saying MSU should go get Jonathan Smith since the week after Tugger got suspended.
And it's possible you said it here, so if you have, then you're not even being facetious.
I don't believe him.
No? Hopefully he has receipts. I'm sure. The Jaden Akins thing, I don't think I ever said he's an elite-level player. I don't think I said that. I think he is and should be and will be a guy who's a bona fide shooter and elite-level defender at the college level. I don't think because if he was an elite level, like what you need to see from him is, can he create a little bit? And MSU could use him to create. He doesn't finish at the rim all that well, or hasn't yet. I don't. If there are receipts for that, please show them, and I will apologize. But I do think he's started slowly, and there's no question about it. The way he played the first half, and I asked him about this in the locker room, and all these guys are saying the right things, but he should never take one shot. He should be Michigan State's second leading scorer. Should never have a half where he takes less than 6 or 7 shots. Shouldn't be the case anymore. And in the second half, he took 9 and was really good. And so the consistency and the inconsistency with him, he's gotten a little bit of a pass because he's not the point guard, because Hoggard is more maddening because of Hoggard's mannerisms and all that stuff. But it's going to start to fall on Akins a little bit here too.
Miller next. Number 1, Mady Sissoko's offense is tied to who he is on the court with him. His memorable moments from last season were feeds from Tyson and Hall. seems to have a connection with Fears this season. Really hoping Fears has the patience and skill to develop that. 2, I didn't realize Penn State hated MSU. What was that? Franklin have some beef with our third-string QB? And 3, watched a couple minutes of an old Jonathan Smith presser, and he seems like a solid dude. None of the ick I got from Tucker. No mom's swimsuit jokes. I'm all in.
The Penn State thing stems back from, I believe, 2015 when, was it Jack Allen who ran in the touchdown? When Michigan State beats Penn State. Penn State's at its lowest of lows. Michigan State's highest of highs. Michigan State wins 55-16, something like that. They score a touchdown with their offensive center running the ball.
Let it go, bro. It's 2015.
I'm just saying.
It's a while ago.
Franklin has not forgotten that, and I don't think ever will, and they did not stop playing.
Does he remember the Michigan, Ohio State beatings he takes? Does he remember those too?
Well, it's just you have your offensive center running in when you get your chance.
Yeah, but it's 2015. I get getting heated for maybe a year or two, but Jesus, man.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Steve next. Number 1, Carissa Thompson's fabricated sideline report resulted in Graham's fire her hot take. Does the same standard apply to Mitch Go Blue Album in 2005's fabrication of MSU game that he did not attend? He was suspended, not fired. Should he have been fired? Or should have been fired, right? 2, Smith wins 7 games.
So there's a little bit of a difference in terms of intent. Like Thompson, when she knew she had not talked to the coach, she knew she was fabricating something.
Oh, please.
Coach talk. Album thought that he was telling a story that was happening. Now, he should have double-checked that they were actually there. He should not have written it. The deadline was stupid. They shouldn't have had to write that column. He shouldn't have chosen to write that column for that deadline. A lot of guys have made bad mistakes for print deadlines. You also, if you got to write a column for a stupid print deadline, don't put it online, editors. Like, fucking get with that. Like, there are lots of things that I write that, if I got to make a certain deadline, it's not that I'm making up stories, but I'm just saying, I'll say this is not going online until I have time to rework it. I'm not going to get, I didn't want the column I wrote over Thanksgiving about the 4 reasons to be thankful to be a Spartan fan. I did not think that was ever going to see online, and I adjusted it slightly and probably would have changed it substantially. They wanted that for Thanksgiving Day, and my deadline was like the first week in November. I didn't know what was going to happen with MSU basketball between the time I filed it and it went in. I didn't know how the tone was going to change. I'm happy to do that for a $5 Thanksgiving newspaper with lots of inserts and all that sort of stuff. That's my job. I do not want that ever to see the light of day online. Mitch Albom, they should have kept that offline. Maybe, I don't even know if they did. But secondly, he could have been fired. It would have been justified. Would have saved a lot of money. Yeah. I mean, what he did was wrong. He thought he was writing about something that was going to happen. He should have written it in those terms. He would have been okay. I think what she did was worse.
Why? It's not like she came out and said, oh, he's going to be out for the year. It's just some coach speak. She didn't get to talk to the coach.
She pretended she
came out and said, oh, the coach told me that he wants to win more on the edges in the second half. I mean, who cares?
And he didn't.
Fucking cares. All right, Joe Naughty. I saw Graham in Palm Desert. That was it. That's the one take.
Yeah, no, it's good to see John. We only got to chat briefly.
Oh, John. I said Joe. Sorry.
Yeah, John. No, it was good to chat, though. Seems like a solid dude. He's been a listener and the show for a long time. So it was very cool to.
You guys crush a couple beers.
I wish we could have. That would have been amazing to do that.
But a couple seltzers.
Yeah, we did not do that.
Yeah. Right. Witty username. Number 1, the mass exodus of urban or I'm done Spartans will not be noticed. 2, Twitter and the message boards are just full of idiots to ignore. And 3, Smith 2.0 really needs an Ohio-based recruiting analyst or coach or whatever.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see who's all on his staff. Now, it looks like he's brought about 6 guys over from his current staff. I mean, 5 guys. And, not everybody's coming. And I think you'll see a couple guys on MSU's staff retained. That's often smart, especially in year 1 and 2. You see how it works, what the mesh is, and then you'll see him bring in a few other guys because he knows it. I mean, this guy isn't an idiot. He knows he's not recruiting. He built a staff previously to recruit and win at Oregon State. Now he's got to build a staff to recruit and win at Michigan State, and that's going to have to include, people who can recruit this area because ultimately, part of the challenge in keeping kids in the portal era is having kids that aren't so far from home that they have at least have some sort of connection to you. They feel like my parents can get here. This is a place that you look at Michigan State got 2 quarterbacks that hope don't transfer that are from the West Coast. All these guys from Georgia and Florida, and you need some of those guys. But you need Ohio, Illinois, Indiana. I think Harlan was dead on that. And when you look at the best Michigan State teams over years, Perlis on down, they're teams that are built largely with guys from the Midwest.
How many people did you talk to that said urban or I'm done? I don't remember seeing anyone saying that. They're just going to die on the Urban Meyer Hill. And
yeah, I mean.
That's what I mean. Like, who are these people? Because your number 2 is like.
There were more.
Your 2 makes sense.
I will say this. There are more people who say, if urban, I'm done, than urban or I'm done. There were more people who were out on urban, the person that I talked to, than the vice versa. The vice versa.
Makes sense. David Jackson, number 1. Ryan Day may need to call Texas A&M and see if they actually want him. He's John Cooper as far as Buckeye fans are concerned. I'm in Columbus, and you can be assured that patience has left town. 2, MSU Hoops must win all of its December games, or things will be grim. And 3, just as Izzo should have found a top center in the transfer portal, Ryan Day should have found a top quarterback that way. Sticking with guys you recruited is all well and good, but both coaches may have lost 23 and 24 national championships by doing so.
Easier said than done to get a top transfer in the portal. It just and then you go get one and you're still a flawed team. Like Kansas has Hunter Dickinson. That's still a flawed team, missing some shooting. It's probably not going to happen for them this particular year. To the Ryan Day point, I mean, this is the advantage of being Michigan State. Ohio State doesn't have anything else. Yeah, they got a hockey team that's, program. It's good. They have a men's basketball program that's good. Nobody gives a shit relative to football. Like they have to sit on this and ache with this now for like 12 months, really, till they get back to this point, at least till football season, like 9 months until life is worth living again for these people. And at Michigan State, it's like, this is awful. Who does Michigan State basketball play this week? Oh, wait, the hockey program is great again. There is enough balance to make life so much better. It would be interesting to do a study, like to see who would you rather be? An Ohio State fan that's going to win huge in football, but you cannot care about what happens in basketball and hockey because you don't. There's no option. You don't really care. Or would you rather be a Michigan State fan and bounce from one thing to the other and enjoy life like that, even though you don't have the ceiling maybe that MSU or that Ohio State football has? I'd be curious.
You want a study? You want a study done on that?
I'd like you to do that study. Would you do that study?
No.
Okay.
By the way, our boy Elko, he's going to Texas A&M.
Is that breaking news?
Well, it happened before the show. I figured you would know. I don't know. I'm a sports person.
I'm doing the Twitter questions or the hot takes before the show. Yeah.
You're right. I'm sorry you missed the Elko. Is he still going to follow the show account, though? That's the big question.
We will have to do more Texas A&M content, I think.
Absolutely not. Sorry to lose you as a listener, Elko. It's been real. Tyler next. Contender for worst sports weekend in a while. Lions terrible. MSU basketball provided hope, then laid down. MSU football deplorable. Michigan beats Ohio State. Bets lost.
That's the worst at the end. I was all on Everton this week. I thought Everton was going to beat Man United. Wound up with a great early goal, then a penalty kick by Man U, and it was a disaster in
I
that
needed
sense.
a Hail Mary parlay last night to keep me even.
Did it happen?
Yes.
Oh, wow. What was that?
And I woke up with the games that were at 10:30 last night.
Okay.
We don't need to go over it.
Okay. Gotcha.
Just all hit.
Gotcha.
David next. Number 1, Jeremy Fears needs to take more drives and shots at the rim. Izzo only allowing him to play solid defense and pass to other shooters isn't going to work. 2, Izzo should actually use his timeouts to stop runs and sub in fresh players. 3, Cohen Carr needs to get as many minutes as possible.
I think you're going to see more and more Cohen Carr as the season goes along, as he figures certain things out. Because you can see guys who are just ready for the moment, ready for any matchup, and Cohen Carr clearly is. I think Fears will grow into that. And I think depending on what happens with we kind of, I think, know who A.J. Hoggard is. We know the best of him. We know the worst of him. You're hoping to get the best of him more often. We know what Tyson Walker is. Terrific basketball player. But we know who he is. Fears is the guard, and Holloman to some degree because we've seen a game where he shoots well, but Fears is really the guard on this team who has a lot of room to grow within the season. And so if you want Michigan State basketball in its backcourt to be something different than it is now, I think watching Fear's development is important. I think Akins will play better, and I think that will help as well. But I think those are – and look, Cohen Carr falls under that too because I think he'll continue to get better. Will Xavier Booker ever be a factor for this team? I think there's a chance he will. I was surprised he did not get on the court against Arizona. I thought he would have at least got the old Pierre Brooks 3 minutes in the first half run where you see how it looks. But, Arizona's also got the best big man combination probably in college basketball.
Gerald B17 next. Rube, rank in order of ass for Graham's recent takes. Number 1, MSU competes for the West 2-2 this year. Could have just as easily lost the 2 they won and won the 2 they lost. 2, Malik Carr is an NFL prospect after one good game versus Indiana. And 3, MSU basketball moral victories. Keep it close versus Arizona. Well, that one's right where it should be. 3. I got to say, the Malik Carr one is fascinating. That was impressive. I think you have them in order, Gerald.
Yeah?
Yeah. Although that Malik Carr one could sneak right up there.
Well, again, I said
could go either way.
I did couch it with the idea that Malik Carr had to have a good next game. Like if he had a game, the whole point of that was
the caveat.
The whole point was after that game, if he played like that and did that against Penn State, that would be something that people looked at. I think you have to listen to the.
No, why do that? I'm gonna react. G.E. Miller next. Number 1, Jonathan Smith with a large assistant pool needs to actually use it to bring in 3+ assistants outside of current OSU, MSU guys. Getting a large budget and giving it all as raises to your buddies is a joke. We need some big-time Midwest recruiters. His success will ride on this. 2, teams had figured out how to beat the Lions D, and Goff isn't good enough to overcome it. If the opponent gets the lead, Goff crumbles. This team still makes the playoffs, but won't make it past round 2. And 3, Izzo should coach his guys pregame like he does at halftime. Just pretend they are down 10 points and chew them out so they start better. Our pregame prep seems off, and that usually is an assistant staffing thing. It's not working.
Yeah, I would wonder if there's – I think for a long time I've thought that A.J. Hoggard is somebody that eases in the games, and some of it is him trying to figure out what matchups work and what they can get away with and just how the team's going to play them. But he's also just played poorly there. I thought moving Sissoko out of the starting lineup would help. I think Cooper allows them to do more things, get off to a better start. But they need more from Jaden too. Again, one of the things I do like about their schedule is there's enough to see if there's growth, even in December. So, they play Georgia Southern this Tuesday night. You're not going to get anything from that. Trey Holloman may hit another 7 threes. Big whoop. He's got to do it in big games for it to matter. And the one thing that's good about that is you'll get more minutes for guys like Xavier Booker. But then they played a week later. They played Nebraska at home, and then that weekend they played Wisconsin at home, and then they played Nebraska on the road. 2 Big Ten teams, and Nebraska's a tough setting, and Wisconsin I think is a good team. Like you'll get a better feel for things, and then they have a game against Baylor a week after that, and Baylor's a good team. So we'll get to see if they can grow and correct this even before Big Ten play. The vibe may be different by Christmas, whereas if you just played a number of Georgia Southern, you wouldn't really know what you were looking at.
Brad Korpalski next. Number 1 with just one here. Jonathan Smith recruited above his means and developed incredibly well, building through the lines with toughness and underrated skill players. Did this with way fewer resources than State. Exactly the kind of coach MSU needs.
No, he checks the boxes. He makes a lot of sense on the front end, and obviously anything can not work. But I would be very surprised if he's not at least a really good coach at Michigan State. And Michigan State, in fairly short order, couple 3 years is a team that's a regular minimum 8-win type team. The real question with him is his ceiling, and that we don't know. And that's not just going to be about him. That's going to be, I think, what Michigan State decides it wants to be, and that's going to determine. NIL will be a big part of that, because I do think like in this new day and age with the 12-team playoff, that Jonathan Smith, based on what we saw him do at Oregon State, can be a guy who puts you in that conversation a lot. And I think right now, given where MSU is and has been for most of the last decade now, I think that would be pretty welcome.
Michael Shaver next. Number 1, John C. Smith should hire Max Bulla as linebackers coach. 2, when Jackson Kohler comes back, he and Cooper should see all the minutes at the 5. And 3, Tom Izzo struggles coaching 6'11" stretch 4-5s that can shoot. See Booker and Jaren Jackson Jr. as examples.
I don't know that that's that. I mean, Booker just isn't ready in a lot of ways. Now, would I be more inclined to put him on the floor and deal with the results? Maybe.
Would he not be ready at other schools? Like if he went to Kentucky, would he not be ready?
He wouldn't be ready. He's just not ready.
So then how is he a 5-star? Shouldn't 5-star guys be ready?
Well, 5-star, it's fair enough. 5-star with big guys sometimes about potential because he's got 5-star skill. He's just not strong enough. He's just not strong enough to do it yet. He's not as big as like Jaren Jackson Jr. was. I've always said before, I like thighs, tree trunk legs, and I like thighs. Jaren Jackson Jr. I think he lead the Big Ten in blocks that year. I mean, he was much further along than Booker.
Yeah, but Jaren Jackson, man, just what could have been. Luke Bunge next. Number 1, Alan Haller is a stone-cold assassin. 2, quarterback spot is strong enough next year to make a bowl game, whether it's Hauser, Levitt, or an Oregon State transfer. 3, Haller had foresight to know Tucker was probably gone and set up the Ford Field game to at least provide some juice to the matchup.
I don't think that's
conspiracy.
Yeah, I don't think. I mean, I talked to Alan Haller before. He wondered what the backlash would be. The Big Ten wanted to do it. NBC wanted to do it, and the question will be and a lot of times in Michigan State history, when they do somebody a favor, they don't seem to get anything back. A few years ago, Michigan State did Duke a favor in terms of a basketball game, and I don't think they've ever gotten that game back. Maybe they will at some point. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Probably shouldn't have said it. Could be wrong. I haven't talked to KP about that. But there was something they were supposed to get out of that. What I want to know is, and I'll ask Haller about this, and maybe it'll happen at some point, there needs to be a moment where Michigan State needs a favor. And, hey, we really don't want to be at this time slot. I know, or we really don't want this or whatever it might be. Help us out. And that should be reciprocated. Being a good partner should be a two-way street.
Fart Soup next. Number 1, Kirk Ferentz has done a hell of a job this season. Oh, wait, that was actually Joel Klatt during the Michigan game. 2, paying $200 for a Christmas tree in the city is mega ass. Next year, I'm going to the damn forest myself. And 3, Gavin is not ass. Sorry for last week, Gavin.
Gavin is definitely not ass. By the way, if you are going out to cut down a Christmas tree, and because part of cutting down a Christmas tree is being comfortable and looking manly, right? I mean, there's no doubt. You want to be wearing a muskox flannel, especially if you're going out with a significant other or somebody you're trying to impress, and you're going down there with a saw, and you want to look like a man's man, right? A muskox flannel is the way to go. And right now, you can get 1, 2, 3, 4, as many as 4 with great savings during their Black Friday sale, which goes through Monday. So if you go to gomuskox.com and you want up to 4 flannels, you can get like $120 off flannels if you buy 4 of them. 80 if it's 3, 40 if it's 2. And if you're just getting 1, it's still $15 off, which is the same offer you'd get with our promo code anytime as well. So you can just go to gomuskox.com with the promo code HOFF, H-O-F-F, if you're just getting 1 flannel. And some fantastic offers. Great way to wrap yourself in the warmth, comfort, and softness of a muskox flannel.
Shambles next. Number 1, I've seen many suggest this team could have won as many as 8 games if Tucker hadn't got himself canned. Nonsense. They were always a 4-win caliber team with this staff, and given the circumstances, this was the most impressive way they could have gone about winning 4 games. 2, Smith is a great hire who can get the program back to respectability as soon as next year if he can bring some of his guys, namely offensive line. Keep Hawk only. I'm canning Harland just for running his mouth. Who does he think he is expecting to return? His unit has been ass for years. 3, we got to stop making the same tired excuses for Izzo. He is never winning number 2 because he'd rather lose his way than win while adapting. Arizona beat us with portal studs while we stay loyal to the players who should have been told to leave. 22 is a senior and still can't hold a basketball.
Well, there's no doubt that Sissoko can be limiting, and he can play hard. Like, to me, Sissoko playing his ass off for 10 to 12 minutes is Sissoko's role. It really is, and I think he can be of great benefit to MSU in that role. The other minutes at the 5, once Jackson Kohler comes back, really need to be Kohler Cooper. And it just – because what ultimately it's limiting on offense, and you see it out there. He doesn't see it, and he can't hold on to it, and it limits who they are. So they're going to have to realize that, and I think it'll help them when they get Kohler back in that sense. That'll automatically happen. You'll see minutes reduced for Mady Sissoko. I disagree on the look. Coaches are in a tricky spot right now, trying to figure out how to roster construct, and Michigan State I still think has a really good roster. Did Arizona build a heck of a one that includes some really good transfers? Yep, that's one way to do it. Maybe MSU can do that. We'll see. We'll see how much NIL money there is, because right now the NIL money for basketball is ISHBIA. ISHBIA is financing this. Like MSU basketball is still got the SD4L thing. Guys are making six figures. It's a good deal. But, I mean, I don't see a lot of other guys writing checks because that's what they're doing at Arizona. They're not getting those guys for free. And so people are going to have to really understand that this is like it,
Arizona was doing the same thing when it was illegal.
Well, Arizona's been writing checks for a long time, so they're good at this. They just
DeAndre Ayton?
They were just able to bring their accounting department out of the dark and write the checks legally now.
Yeah, we can actually look at you guys now. Some dude, number one, has Jonathan Smith ever set one foot on our campus? Was he snuck in? 2, our in-state rivalry in football is going to swing back very quickly. Their coach will leave on his own or get banished by the NCAA. They will also be punished severely, which will cause a mass exodus in the portal and hinder recruiting for the next shithead they hire. 3, MSU Hoops will win 11 of the next 12 games and will be 14-4, and we'll all feel a lot better.
Everybody will feel better if they're 14-4. There's no question. 11 of the next 12.
Some dude, congrats. Made me feel better.
Yeah, no, it's the question number one is Jonathan Smith ever stepped foot on Michigan State's campus? I don't believe so, and that's not usually the way it works these days.
Do you need to? Can't you just have a drone float around this campus?
Usually you meet in an airport hangar somewhere, or you meet in a hotel, somewhere. You don't do it where you bring people to campus anymore. That's not usually the way.
Well, you'd think that you'd want to see the campus though if you were about to take a job.
I don't know. I don't believe he's ever been on campus. I could be wrong on that, but that I have not heard that he's actually been on campus until today.
So we will find out the contract, all the numbers on Tuesday.
I would guess we'll get a lot of them by Tuesday. Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait.
Now some of it we may have to FOIA, but Haller's been pretty good. Like Haller kind of knows that a lot of this stuff is FOIA-able. So what's the point of waiting on it?
Come on, Alan, don't make me FOIA. It's dramatic. Neurotic Pants. Number one, the way Haller announced that the assistant coaches were gone shows a self-conscious director engaging in fan service. We already know that with a new coach comes new assistant coaches. I think Haller is a good AD regardless. 2, Harbaugh's juggernaut is precisely planned and well thought out, but oftentimes the 3 yards and a cloud of dust approach is boring. I think MSU's new coach will bring a style of play that sharply contrasts that, although I don't know if it will compete with it. And 3, at this point, D'Antonio and Barnett are getting paid to be everyone's grandpas.
I'll tell you this, though. If having grandpa on staff helps you recruit or retain players, then you have grandpa on staff. I mean, that's what it is. And I look, Barnett, there are moments that Barnett gets a bad rep because as a head coach, he doesn't always look like he's got it all together. But that's why certain guys are just built to be position coaches. And Barnett wants to be a head coach, and I'm not saying it wouldn't work somewhere. I mean, the problem for Barnett, and I'm not talking about Michigan State or the Big Ten, the problem for Barnett is, you don't get to build it with your own staff. These coaches that the Michigan State had are not the ones, and Barnett's told me this, that he would have if he was building his own staff. It might be a few of them. He didn't get to set the tone. He didn't get to do a lot of things. I'm not going to – Barnett did not do enough to get consideration for the head coaching job, not by a mile. But I also don't think that what we saw from him as a head coach is indicative of who he could be entirely as a head coach, if that makes any sense.
I guess. Rich Seary next. Number one, didn't expect miracles right away. This could be a very good hire, and we need to give Coach Smith a chance to build the program. D'Antonio wasn't exactly high on everyone's list because of his average record at Cincy, and that turned out fine. Excuse me. 2, Thanksgiving with friends and family is fine, but when you want to watch the MSU-Arizona Hoops game and are outvoted to have to suffer through the Cowboys-Commanders game instead. That's ass. F you, Thanksgiving. 3, by March, our hoops team will be feared, but as of right now, I think Arizona looks like the best team in the nation.
Arizona's really good, and they're not going anywhere. And they may hit like UConn last year hit a slump where they lost like 5 in a row, and they lost interest in the middle of the conference season, and then turned it back on. I think Arizona will be there on the final weekend of college basketball for sure. Yeah, no, that sucks. I hear a lot of this from people. That you go to the problem with family and visiting people on holidays when there's a lot of sports on is if you don't have control of the TV. I'm
out.
Yeah, well, that's you stuck around this Thanksgiving for that reason, right? You told Tree's family you didn't want to see him?
No, that's not what I did whatsoever.
Oh, okay.
I had to stay back because of the dog, but I did get to see a lot of the games, which was nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Mike Scott, number 1, excellent hire. Jonathan Smith's coaching acumen is highly respected. He has built good lines. The question is whether he can recruit at an elite level. 2, Jeremy Fears needs to get 10 of A.J. Hogarth's current minutes. It's time to move on to the players who can be consistent and develop. And 3, no excuses for the Lions' offensive line play Thursday. It's a reminder that Goff needs a great line to be great. Rube State Prison roommate could beat him in a race. That Vitae injury really hurt. Where is this thing where people say, like, you need a great line to be a good quarterback? Like, no shit. Every good quarterback needs a good offensive line.
But I think Goff needs a great one.
Well, like we said, he needs everything, like kind of the Kirk Cousins syndrome of he needs everything to go perfectly.
Yeah. No, for sure.
But, I mean, every good quarterback needs players and offensive line and all that shit.
Yeah.
You put Mahomes in a situation with no offensive lineman, I'm sure he could probably still throw 25 touchdowns. But
the difference, I mean, the thing about Mahomes is, like, they made the call to build the defense and his offensive line rather than retain an elite receiver, and then they won a Super Bowl because he's still really good with whatever receivers he has.
And, Mike, I would love to get another quarterback in here, but who? That's the thing. There's no other alternative.
That we know of.
Matt Stafford coming back, bringing that championship home. That'd be so awesome. Chris Haller, next, number 1. Smith isn't a slam dunk hire. You've got to be able to recruit, and I think that's going to be an issue. 2, it's time to pull the plug on the Troy Weaver front office.
Ooh.
He's complete ass. And 3, not trading for pass rush help is going to bite Brad Holmes in the ass. This defense needs help, and Holmes dropped the ball.
So the Troy Weaver comment, I disagree here. And I know people are frustrated, and they are not playing well, and there is some roster construction stuff where you go, why is it built like this? And they've had a number of injuries. Like, who gets that many injuries
all
in
the
basketball?
bust draft picks from 5 years ago.
But those aren't hit. Like, he has got guys largely, like, I would still rather be the Pistons than about 20 other franchises in terms of young core. Cade Cunningham, Jalen Duren, Asar Thompson. Now, we'll see what Ivy becomes. It's a weird deal. But Asar Thompson, looks like the second or third best rookie this year, and he's been fantastic. And the problem is they don't have enough shooters, and they're getting Bogdanovich back, and they need shooting, and they didn't have enough of it to withstand the injuries, and so they've been awful. And I don't know if they have the right coach, and unfortunately they committed to him for a long time. But I still think you go down the line, places you'd rather be, and you'd still rather be the Pistons in terms of what they're developing, and than a lot of other places.
Can we get a different owner?
Well,
is that possible?
Well,
a guy that actually comes to the games, or
I'm cool with firing Troy Weaver and putting another GM, but I don't want a GM who wants his own guys. You get a GM who meddles and gets rid of guys, and you go back to the bullshit you used to do, then you're screwed. The GM can't have the power to ruin what you have, so you got to keep the same GM because the next GM is just going to screw it up. You're not far away. The Pistons are going to be competitive by the end of this year. They're going to be very good next year. You're not far away. You just got to suffer through it a little bit longer.
Be patient. Craig Dodger, next. A journalist that gets something so wrong, like, I don't know, Urban is coming to town, should be forced to write an analysis of how they got it so wrong, or never be allowed to write for public consumption again.
I don't know any journalist who wrote that Urban was coming to town, though. I know that there was, like Justin Spiro and Justin was, working his sources and stuff like that, but he's not working under the same. Number one, I don't think he ever and I'm not comparing. I'm not saying I didn't mean to bring Justin into the Hondo world here because I don't believe Justin's making stuff up. In Hondo, we used to have a 33% rule where 33% of what he said was just completely fabricated. The rest of the 33% was interesting, and 33% he actually had some insight, and you had to look at it because he was tied in. But if you don't have somebody in the room telling you this has happened, then you can't really report it. And I don't believe that the sourcing that like somebody like Hondo has.
So you're saying he just guessed?
I'm not saying he guessed, but I had a lot of people I think had decent sourcing late in the week that it was done with Jonathan Smith, but not somebody in the room. Not where you could still be wrong, and you don't do that. You don't make that claim if you don't have it. As much as you may trust somebody, and I did trust the guy, but unless you have somebody in the room, so to speak, you just don't go there. That's just that's the rules of the game. And so I don't know any, but actual like journalists and who are writing regularly or anything that said that Urban was going to be the Michigan State head coach.
Grosse Point Spartan next. Number 1, F this 35-35 hire. 2, John C. Smith made a bad program mediocre. Nothing more. And 3, 8-4, here we come. I'm out. Well, there's the one person, I guess, right?
Yeah, well, 35-35 isn't 100% fair because he was like 2-10 at the beginning. Like the last 2 years, he's like 25-12 the last 3 years, like 18-7 the last 2 years. Like he had built something, and like Jim Harbaugh, and I guess it was only 3 years at Stanford, was like 29-21, which is pretty good. But his first year was 4-8. You some places are hard
to take the
builds.
first year out.
Yeah, take the first 2 years out. We don't.
3.
How many of us really know what he walked into at Oregon State? I don't have any fucking clue. You don't have any clue. We don't have any clue what it was like. If you go back and read a lot of stories, then you'd probably get a sense. But I haven't done that yet, and maybe I will at some point here. I don't think he made a bad program necessarily mediocre, because I think based on what we're seeing, there's a chance that the ceiling is a really strong coach. Now the question we don't know is there, the peak Mark D'Antonio years? Is there the dream that Mel Tucker had wanted? Is that dream there? And I'll be very curious to get to know Jonathan Smith, to hear him on Tuesday, to get a sense of his staff, and to watch him work. And I think we'll start to get a better sense of what the potential is for the program.
Jacob Thalen next. Number 1, Hendon Hooker is the future of the Lions. Goff is great for now, but evidently playmaking and mobility is needed. 2, retaining Barnett and Hawkins is nearly as important as getting the head coach hire right. It's crucial to keep recruiting and young talent intact. 3, Cade is overrated. Talented, but a volume scorer. If he's as elite as we say he is, the Pistons would be at least near 500.
He just needs shooting around him. He doesn't have it. That's it right now. I mean, it's just a problem. I think Cade is going to be fine, and they need to get him some help.
Have you one time watched Cade as a Piston?
Yeah.
And was like, damn.
Like damn in a good way?
Yeah.
Yes.
Like,
yes. This year.
Like when I watched Cohen Carr, I'm like, damn.
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Right. This year I've watched 4 or 5 Pistons games
with your pants on.
I never watched the Pistons with my pants on. That's but try to get 2 things done at once. But no, geez, I'll fix that in post.
DMB number 1. This MSU basketball team runs through A.J. Hoggard, for better or worse. 2, Kirk Herbstreit private jetting around the country doing game day. NFL and college is a joke. Save some work for others. It's really, and then he's on the pregame show. He can't do the pick because he's doing the game. Like, why do we need him to fly across everywhere?
I like him on college. I don't like him on Thursday nights with Al Michaels. Like, it's just not a good mix.
Good.
No
he's very good at his job. He does exactly what you're supposed to do. But the problem is, and we talked about it with Travis Kelce and Jason Kelce, you just have to go away sometimes. You can't be everywhere. I can't see you everywhere. What's wrong with these guys? Jay Riemenschneider. I mean, he has a family, right? Doesn't he have like kids and shit? I mean, don't you ever want to go see your kids? I mean, the whole goal of getting to that status is you do one game, you do a stupid pregame show, and then you cash your $7 million check.
But mid-January through August, you don't have to do shit. He's got a really good life.
You could have an even better life. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Anyway, DMB, Jay Riemenschneider, number 1. Michigan cheated by getting something everybody else gets, but in an illegal fashion. So, yes, punish them. But the talk that they affected betting lines or could injure other teams' players or only one because they cheated are ridiculous notions that will tarnish a really good season. 2, the football coach hiring and wings. The football coach hiring and wings over Bruins help put a smile on MSU fans after a rough few days. MSU football, basketball, the Lions, Pistons all lose while having to see Michigan basketball go 500 and Michigan football have a great weekend. 3, MSU made their huge announcement at the time they did to make it to take attention away from Michigan's win, as well they should have.
I don't think that was why. I really don't. Because in some ways it gets buried, it gets lost. You're not, that Michigan Ohio State game was as big as any college football game I've been alive for. Like you just weren't going to get acknowledged. You weren't going to get noticed. They did it when they did it because it was going to break. And one of the more impressive things about Michigan State in this entire run was this entire coaching search is how quiet things were, how they kept it under wraps, and the second it was done, they were like, we're just going to put it out there. You're not trying to save something for the plane ride the guy shows up or save something for Tuesday. When it's done, and get it out there. And if they had waited another 2 hours, it wasn't going to be broken on their terms, and they kept it on their terms. And that's why they did it when they did it. I don't think it had anything to do with the time the game was. Let's take a really quick break. When we come back, we'll get into many more of your hot takes, some fantastic ones still to come. Couch and the Rube, presented by our friends at Muskox Quality Flannels.
Ever wonder how comfortable you can be and how good you can look? Put on a Muskox flannel and find out. Muskox has new arrivals for this fall, including the Caper Green Grand Flannel, which even makes Couch look good. Muskox is a Detroit-based flannel company that creates soft and durable flannels made to last a lifetime. They become a great partner with Couch and the Rube, not just because they make us look good and feel good, but because they're good people too, and a socially conscious company. For every $100 purchase, $10 is donated to the Alaska Wildlife Conservation. Muskox flannels are designed with 100% cotton that is ethically sourced and double brushed for softness. Feel the quality and comfort of a Muskox flannel by ordering at GoMuskox.com, where Couch and the Rube listeners can enjoy $15 off their flannel purchase with the promo code HOFF. Firekeeper's online casino and sportsbook is the site to play. Get in on the action with pre- and in-game wagering. You can go green or blue on Saturdays or Lions on Sundays, plus hockey and hoops. Get your first casino deposit match up to $500. Plus, bet $5 on sports and get $100 in free bets. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or older and located in Michigan. Gambling problem? Call the Michigan Problem Gambling Helpline at 1-800-270-7117. Wherever you are on your cannabis journey, let Sky Mint Premium Cannabis be your guide, your friend, and your place. Whether you're curious about cannabis or a seasoned connoisseur, Sky Mint's knowledgeable staff will help you with a vast selection of products to choose from to fit your needs. Sky Mint believes access to the best cannabis helps people do good and feel good, so they grow it right here in Michigan, giving you high-quality, locally grown cannabis at highly accessible prices. Visit skymint.com for special offers and location information throughout Michigan, and use the promo code Couch and Rube 20 for 20% off your first visit. Sky Mint Cannabis. You'll love this place.
Find Couch and the Rube podcasts on Spreaker, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, Google Podcasts, CastBox, and the Rube's favorite, Podcast Addict.
Couch and the Rube, presented by our friends at Muskox Quality Flannels. Go to GoMuskox.com, and if you want $15 off a flannel anytime, use the Couch and the Rube promo code HOFF, H-O-F-F, to get $15 off your flannel purchase. But right now, they have such great deals, up to 4 of them. I'm stocking up for Christmas. I'd like to say I'm giving them away, but really it's for myself. The fact that I can get 4 flannels and save that much. Go to GoMuskox.com, and you can take advantage of their Black Friday sales, which continue into the beginning of this week. So GoMuskox.com.
Spartan 18770 next. Number 1, Michigan Athletics will be in a major upheaval next year. They will need to hire a football and basketball coach and replace an AD as well. 2, at least 2 2024 decommits will recommit to this program in the coming weeks. And 3, every fan should see the Iron Bowl in person.
Alabama, Auburn, a little Peyton Thorne almost taking down Alabama.
That was a hell of a game.
Yeah, it was a great game.
Feel bad for Auburn fan.
It'll be interesting to watch the decommitment, commitment, the recruiting cycle, the whirlwind that's about to happen is going to be fascinating. And like I believe that college football needs to change the calendar for what's right for coaches, for the kids, for everybody, to have the only signing day be in February again, because right now it's where coaches really need to be is on campus. They can deal with their own kids, who's going to stick around, who's going to transfer, their own staff. Like, this is an important time to be in-house and then spend January back on the road, whereas right now they got to try and do it all at once, and it's going to all happen very quickly. And so it'll be, from a fan perspective, from a media perspective, it'll be a fascinating few weeks.
Matt Venny next. Number one, the offensive records for MSU that were set Friday night need to be the first thing seen on Jay Johnson and Chris Kapilovich's resumes for the rest of their football careers. 2, Mark D'Antonio created a better roster during his last 3 years than Mel Tucker did his entire 3 years. And 3, Alan Haller as an AD is more cutthroat than he gives off during press conferences and press releases.
100%. I mean, he is somebody who is...
But you have to be, right?
Yes. You have to be comfortable in uncomfortable conversations. And he has had a number of them.
With the Tucker one right there, he should get an award for having to deal with that.
Going back to D'Antonio, tough conversations at the end with him, with Kathy George. And, obviously you can agree or disagree with the Susie Merchant decision. I don't think I think Robin Fralick's an exciting and interesting young coach. I don't think I would have made that decision on Susie when he did. But he did. He was willing to. Yeah, I mean, he is.
Are we done with that story, by the way?
The Susie Merchant story?
Yeah.
I don't know entirely. That's a good question. That's a good question.
Richard Kane next. Number one, Graham's column detailing why MSU fans should be thankful was solid, but would have been stronger if it had mentioned the gymnastics and cross-country teams, which are both improving and doing very well, including winning championships. 2, when two things or people are working well together, they jibe well, not jive well. Who did that? Did you do?
I did. I don't think I did that. I'm very careful. I know jive. Yeah.
Oh, okay. You know jive? 3, missed front ends of 1-and-1s should count as 2 missed free throws. And bonus, LSJ gets a FOIA log so you can see what other people are working on. Sounds like a fancy form of sign stealing. LSJ is America's paper.
Yeah, one of my favorite things that we do, and this is really the work of Matt Mancarini, but
of course,
because he is as good as it comes with FOIA. Like, I still don't understand how we have him, because he's just better than, like, he'll look at the FOIA log, he can see what people ask for, and he'll know what they're not going to get. Like, major national writers who people think the world of and think are really talented will be like, they should have asked for it like this. Oops, no, they're not going to get it, because he's just brilliant at that, and it's a real skill, and getting what you want through FOIA is often in what you ask for and being narrow and specific, and he is
just give me the whole thing.
Yeah, that costs you $1 million.
Just copy that bastard. Why don't you just forward it over to me? Huh?
I need every email between Alan Haller and Matt Ishbia from 2014 to 2023, please.
What voice is that?
It's my FOIA voice. I don't know.
That's your okay. Ben Jen, number one, 2 years is a long time in college football. MSU will be back at least in the second tier by 2025. 2, the biggest coach Smith is bringing. Is offensive line coach Michael Chizik. Mike Chizik. From my Oregon buddy, this is huge. This is one of the best O-line coaches in the nation. Guy's a stud. And 3, I'm thankful for you two.
Appreciate you, Benjamin. We're thankful for you as well. And
Michael Zik is the CZ.
Michael Zik, yeah.
Is the CZ silent?
That's a great question. I know him on paper. I don't actually know the name. So
you just laugh at me.
Until
you find it out.
People thought that the last O-line coach was supposed to be the real deal, and we'll see if anybody can finally get this O-line.
Yeah,
working.
But this guy is the really real big deal.
But this time is it? Okay,
yeah.
Okay.
Alex James, number one, Jonathan Smith should ask Drew Stanton to be his quarterback coach. 2, MSU Hoops closes like a cross-faded freshman at Rick's Cafe. And 3, Connor Stallions is simply one of Tyler Durden's aliases, tasked with bringing Project Mayhem to college football.
Drew Stanton, huh?
Is that a bid, or
I don't know.
does he really want Drew Stanton?
No, I he's a quarterback guy himself, so my guess is it's somebody he has a relationship with, and his offensive coordinator is coming with him as well. So I don't know if he's
Drew Stanton's
going to
retire. Well. What is he going to coach for?
I would not want to
grind a shit ton of money.
Yeah, if I played 15 years in the NFL, I would not grind it out as a college football coach.
Absolutely not. Mojo Jojo. Number 1, having attended the game on Thanksgiving, didn't want to interrupt the 3 quick takes magic, Graham, but was cool to see you. MSU has a very solid and passionate fan base that travels well. Would argue top 15 in the NCAA. Arizona fans' chants, energy, and general disposition was mid. 2, watching the last official Pac-12 game, Cal and UCLA, can't imagine UCLA won't tear down the Rose Bowl and put it in a better location. I'll be sad as a college football fan, but it makes sense as no one wants to drive to Pasadena. Spent 1.5 hours in traffic to go 12 miles in LA last week. 3, too early to tell, but it's interesting to see the parallels with D'Antonio in terms of how Smith turned OSU into a consistent power through player development and into the top third of the Pac-12, RIP. But both coaches would look great in a muskox flannel, right, Graham?
Everybody looks good in a muskox flannel. You know, if I look good in a muskox flannel, you look good in a muskox flannel. That's why they endorse us. You start with the 2 ugliest blokes on the planet, and if we look good, everybody else.
What'd you call me? What?
A bloke.
Oh,
yeah.
Sorry, you said it fast. I was like, "What blokes?" I forgot you said that.
Oh, sorry, I missed you. I would have loved to have, come up and interrupt the 3 quick takes. Just say hello. I may give you a weird look because I'm.
So you want people to interrupt you?
No, don't do that. Don't do that.
Feverishly typing on your laptop.
God, it's one of the moments in life where I realize that I am, like, how kind can I be? Like, there are people who come up to me at the end of, especially MSU basketball games, where I sit there right on that corner, and they'll begin to have a conversation with me, and I've got like 30 seconds to turn what's left and get them out. And but it sucks because I often do want to talk to people. And
so what do you do? Snap?
Yeah. Well,
don't you see I'm working?
One of the cooler experiences this week, by the way, is that Tom Apostle, who's lives in Los Angeles, who's a Michigan guy, Michigan State guy, and his wife, who is Sharon Lawrence, who is a Hallmark,
how's Sharon?
Hallmark movie fame, but also NYPD Blue. I mean, she's a famous actress, done a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
She emailed me after the game that they had missed me. And
from NYPD Blue?
Yeah, she emailed me, and the subject line was like Hallmark movie fame and MSU basketball fan, because he listens.
She hitting on you, dude?
He listens to the show.
Oh,
he listens to the show.
Okay,
and so anyway, it was pretty cool. Pretty cool. Like for me, Sharon Lawrence, a big deal.
Yeah,
big deal. Like for
Jake
me,
Hawkins is freaking out right now.
This is a big deal.
What's your top 5 scenes of hers?
No, we could go through. I mean, Poinsettias for Christmas is one of the best, best Hallmark movies that exist. And anyway, I'm off on a tangent. Now all I can think about is the 8 o'clock Hallmark movie I might not be home for tonight that I've been waiting for. So we'll move on.
Cinema. Number 1, what's the biggest gambling win you've ever had? 2, in what Michigan city can one find the Big Red Lighthouse and the world's largest pickle factory?
I don't. Okay, what's the best? I'll look this up. What's the biggest gambling win you've ever had?
Like,
you remember it?
Sports gambling, poker.
Let's do sports gambling.
Sports gambling. I mean, I've had some future bets that hit that were like 500. I mean, I've had not just one single bet, but I've had a weekend where I've won like 1,000 on sports. So usually when I win, it just goes back into the whole thing. Like basically, I'm basically like a 50% gambler that just likes to throw money around and keep it moving. So I don't really try to take out a bunch at the same time. Now, casino wins and other shit like that, yeah. And poker, I've taken out a couple thousand here and there.
Yeah, I had some big wins and big losses in my late 20s when I thought I was going to like make a living doing this stuff, you know, or at least a side hustle. Yeah, but
hey, just $100 a day, like Harry says.
Right. But yeah, nowadays, every once in a while, you still get like a great parlay, the underdog parlay that hits. That's kind of fun. That's several $100 or whatever. But that's about the limit. It's Holland, Michigan, by the way, where I got married. Is the Big Red Lighthouse and world's largest.
Don't tell Sarah Lawrence that.
Sharon Lawrence.
Sharon Lawrence.
Jeez.
Sorry.
Respect.
Iman Center next. Number 1, having Graham's 3 quick takes for every blowout loss available for everyone is not ass. Having his 3 quick takes for the hiring of Smith, the first good news for MSU in months, behind a paywall is triple ass. Most egregious blue wall example to date. 2, eating a jalapeno pizza and dealing with that decision several hours later in the bathroom felt like proper foreplay for the Penn State game.
Yeah.
Make sure you courtesy flush, though.
Yeah. So I apologize for them being behind a paywall.
It's $1 for 3 years.
Yes,
Iman.
Please subscribe. But the other thing is, I don't have as much control as I do. Since the beginning of November, we're doing something different in Gannett where I can mark it free or mark it subscriber only or whatever. I don't have complete control over it. Some people's, it's like metered. So if you've read a number of them in the last 30 days, it then goes behind a paywall. You don't get it free. I don't have as much control. I can't give all the inside secrets. In fact, I'll probably get fired for everything I've just said. But what I'm trying to say to you is it was not intentionally behind a paywall. You were just one of the chosen people it was paywalled for, and that's probably based on the fact that you've read previous stuff recently that I've done.
This is your last free article. Enjoy it.
And this is probably the last show we'll do because I'll probably be fired by next week.
G Couch UK, number 1, Jonathan Smith is a great hire. 2, it's no secret Harland Barnett loves the Spartans. No one will ever love you as much as Harlan, yet you still don't want to date him. No matter. He loves you all the same. And 3, Lions will win a playoff game this year.
When you watch the Packers game, do your dreams for the postseason change? Like a playoff win would just be, let's just do that.
I just want to make it to the playoffs. I know that we have a good chance right now. I don't even want to think about the opponent or thinking we're going to have to play outside because we won't get the number 1 seed. So it just bums me out that guys like Chase Young and Montez Sweat, I know Montez Sweat signed a big deals, but Chase Young for a 4th rounder? That pass rush, it's so depressing, Graham, to not be able to get to the quarterback like at all. Jordan Love was sitting back there for 15 seconds. Like, as a fan, it drives you nuts.
Yeah, it was the thing that...
And the Chicago game. I mean, Justin Fields and Jordan Love are tearing our ass.
That's the thing. It was one of those games where the Lions looked like the old Lions, and that's what I think was really bothered people. It's one thing...
turnovers.
And it's
3 fumbles. I mean, come on, Goff. Cucker Tarlson, the death of the show will be the missing Pick'em weeks.
Apologies, Cucker Tarleton. Yeah, I missed a few of these weeks. We'll get it going again now.
That'd be awesome if that's the reason the show ends.
Yeah, lots of reasons the show could end.
Stupid pick 'em.
That is not one of them.
That I beg you every year. I'm like, don't do it.
But by the way, and credit to our friend Eric Schultz.
Of course.
Because Eric sent me the standings pretty early on and said, I got your back here. I was wondering if you weren't putting them out there because you knew you didn't have time to do the standings. And he is right in that sense that there's no way this year. It's just been a different kind of year. I'm either doing better work for the LSJ, which I don't know. We're a smaller staff than we've been. So I've definitely picked up more work. I've just got more stuff going on. It's been one of those things where but we will get him out there, and Eric will have my back, and we will finish strong and have like a final good 5 or 6 weeks of the Pick'em standings. And my apologies.
You say so. Matt C., number 1, let's build Barnett a nice guy wall of fame at Spartan Stadium, but let's keep him far away from the football building. We need the stench of the last 8 years out of here. 2, love the Smith hire. He clearly can develop talent, and his schemes are great. Just need to give him the bag and let him recruit. 3, A.J. Hoggard needs to be benched. He is killing this offense. MSU basketball is mid. All caps.
What is mid? What is mid?
Mid-level, man. You're
Is
just
that what
mid,
it is?
dude. You're just
Mid-level?
average, bro.
Yeah, I'll tell you. I remember.
What do you mean, what is mid? Like, if I gave you 3 guesses of what the fuck mid is, like, you really? What is? Are you going to be the old guy?
Yeah, that's me.
Is that you?
Mid is 1996.
Fucking Andy Rooney. What is this mid thing?
Mid is Damon Bethea and 1996.
Damn, you're dropping names.
That's
Or
mid.
Damon Bethea.
There's nothing. Yeah, I like Damon. That's ridiculous.
When Damon Bethea is just sitting listening to this podcast.
Catching strays. I love Damon. I met him at a game a few years ago. I didn't mean that, but it's like
fucking mid. You know who that reminds me of? Damon Bethea. Am I right?
Damon Bethea, by the way, nobody has ever played college basketball who looked more like Will Smith than Damon Bethea. Gosh, I apologize.
If God is real, he's listening to this podcast right now.
I hope not.
Please.
I hope not.
Jarrett next. Number 1, MSU is at a better position than Michigan, Penn State, and Ohio State because the past 3 years of Michigan won't matter, including this past Ohio State win. 2, Big Ten men's basketball will get 4 teams in the NCAA tourney. And 3, Tyson Walker playing how he is a terrible sign for MSU. Give me 2011 Kalen Lucas flashbacks.
That's interesting you say that. I mean, I think Walker is playing really well. He's in a different role. There are some things when he plays against guys with size he can't do, and you see that when he gets toward the rim. But he carried them the other night again. They're only in that game because Tyson Walker is playing the way he was. And then I thought Fears and Carr, especially late in the first half, played well. That's interesting you say that. I wasn't covering the team in 2011, so I didn't watch the spiral and why Kalen Lucas, why it didn't happen for that team in 2010-11. But I certainly don't see Walker. I didn't even know the comparison because I wasn't covering the team, so I shouldn't get into that. The Big Ten, will they only have 4 teams in the NCAA tourney? The Big Ten will wind up with 6, 7. It's not as deep as it's been, but it's still a really good league.
Sunshine Spartan next. Number 1, apparently cheaters do win. They have ruined college football. 2, this John Smith will be greater than last MSU coach named John Smith. And 3, the Lions will lose Sunday, but then win out. Will be the 3 seed.
You would sign up for that because that's 13-4. You'd take that in a heartbeat, even if they lost this week. Hold on, the Lions schedule they're in. Who do they even have this coming week?
It's Saints.
Saints on the road. That's a losable game.
It is. Although I watched the Saints today, but see, I said that about the Packers and the Bears, but it's in New Orleans and they're not a great. Derek Carr is ass.
Yeah, and then
I cannot lose, dude. I can't lose to Derek Carr and have him sit back there all day. I can't do it.
Bears and Broncos and Vikings, Cowboys and Vikings. It's not a bad schedule. They ought to be able to beat most of those teams.
Why? After what you watched on I mean,
I don't know. Yeah, it's
back
true.
to back. I get it, short week and all that shit. But the Bears and then the Packers back to back. It's just
so. That's the thing, though. They now are going to have the 10 days off. They should be. I think we get a better sense if this is a real problem because the Saints are limited. They're not a bad team, but they've got an average quarterback, and there's some limitations. How they look against the Saints, I think, will be pretty telling.
I mean, Atlanta kicked their ass today. Sunshine Spartan next. Number 1. Bo McJunkins. Number 1, Mark D'Antonio or Tom Izzo would not be asked questions about chickens or bathing suits if they were under 2 investigations. Harbaugh pressers are pathetic from the media. 2, our out-of-bounds plays and last plays of the game under Izzo have been terrible. We can constantly turn it over and don't get a shot up now. And 3, oh, look, another early season matchup we are unprepared for. Can't wait for that 7 seed again. It's Tom's record of 3-45 in early season matchups now. Be prepared for once, Tom.
I don't think it's as bad as you think there, but
don't coach my team.
Yeah, look, I mean, he's miserable too. I think he's more miserable than he should be, but I think the reason for misery would be that you may have a situation at point guard where you are what you are, and what you are isn't going to work, and so that's the problem.
From the Woodshed, number 1, I wanted Urban, but I hope Smith does well and brings us to the same levels of success we had under D'Antonio. 2, is a lack of Midwest recruiting ties that serious for a head coach and some staff? I've seen Urban fans and other fans be quasi-gaslit by some local sports media outlets because of their concerns about recruiting and Smith's overall resume. Oregon State is a tough place to win, but he hasn't beaten any top-tier opponents when both teams were ranked, or a track record of sustained winning and success. Having those concerns doesn't equate to not supporting Smith as our head coach. Why can't we, or shouldn't we, desire to be elite again and want an elite coach at the helm? 3, the Lions needed a fuck-up game to humble them. This will begin our drive to at least hosting the NFC Championship game against the Niners.
Yeah, I don't think the Lions need that. I don't think this is a humbling situation. The Bears should have done that.
Yes, having to come back 12 points down, 3.5, whatever it was, 4 minutes, and then the Packers game.
To your number 2, is it serious for head coach that the lack of recruiting ties? It is if you don't bring some guys on staff for sure, but you've got to recruit the Midwest, but he knows that I guarantee you, like a week from now, when we have a better sense of his staff, it'll include, 4 or 5 guys with a history of recruiting the Midwest, and that's he'll lean on those guys in those positions.
JD next, number 1, MSU in 2013 and 15 had a more impressive run than 21-23 Michigan. Tougher Big Ten and no cheating. 2, Lions hype train had a good run, but it's over. But hey, at least our D-line has a bunch of nice, hardworking guys. 3, Jonathan C. Smith will follow in his predecessor's shoes and hit a double-digit win season in year 2. He'll also keep his dick in his pants. Hashtag scorching hot takes.
Do
you think Jonathan Smith was asked about, like, has he ever had phone sex at all?
I don't think that was in the
Not
interview.
at all? No. Can you ask that on Tuesday?
Well, I mean, yeah, that'll be my first question. If you had phone sex, was it with your wife? What led to it? No, yeah. I don't think
I have a 4-part question.
Yeah, the Lions hype train had a good run, but it's over. I don't think the Lions are still 8-3. We all would have signed up for that before the year. They just looked like shit last week, and we got to figure out why and how bad it is.
Pork Snizzle. Number 1, don't think the Lions have enough to make a run. The defense just not good enough. 2, MSU basketball is in a funk right now, giving huge leads to top 10 teams, playing sloppy, shooting poorly, yet still had a chance to win them, which is pretty impressive. They'll be good when they settle in.
Yeah, settle. I mean, I do think Arizona's the best team they played by a long way, and they nearly won the game. So there's that. And again, one of the best things about the way the schedule's set up, it's not as brutal as last year where at a certain point they just wore down. They were missing some guys. That Notre Dame game was a disaster, but they were just out of gas. We will get to see them. Like, they play Georgia Southern Tuesday, and a week off, full week off after that. And then you see them at home against Wisconsin. Then 4 days, you see them on the road at Nebraska. Then it's like 6 days, and you see them against Baylor. There's a Oakland game in there. But, like, we're going to get 3 more real good opportunities in December to get a sense of where this group is.
Couch on fire, number 1. I thought Nick Saban had sold his soul to the devil at Alabama, but yesterday's finish has convinced me. 2, MSU hockey keeps rolling. Hope the Jonathan Smith hire is just as good. And 3, MSU basketball has failed to finish in 4 straight close games. Kansas State, Tennessee, James Madison, and Arizona, not a positive trend.
And this is where you get concerned because your point guard is A.J. Hoggard, and he's the guy who's got the ball in his hands at the end, and he's not a shooter. And you do have some limitations there, and they do need to they need to when the ball winds up with him taking the biggest shots and it's from outside 10, 15 feet, you made the wrong decision in how you're going about your end of game offense.
Jason Akins up next. Hot takes on 9 months of legal gambling in Ohio. Number 1, how did UNLV lose to San Jose State, and why did I bet on it? 2, don't bet on rivalry games. And 3, better yet, don't bet.
Well, 9 months, guy. I hope you're not way in the hole. Rivalry games are tricky. You definitely need to take that into account. There are games where it just winds up being more chippy and close, and teams know each other and players know each other, and Vegas doesn't properly always account for it. So
Vegas doesn't know shit.
Yeah.
So keep betting, according to Graham.
Yeah. I will say that we've all been there when we're asking a random game like, how did UNLV lose to San Jose State?
Where you don't want to tell people you hit them like a win or something. Yeah. Tyrone Plum next, number 1. Jonathan Smith should be a good hire, at least an improvement. If he is not good, we are setting the trend of improving. So by the time we are in our 90s, we will see a good team. 2, the Michigan asterisk is a shame. They have just stolen a college football playoff spot from a team that deserved it. Such a disgrace. Yes, I'm talking to you, Mom. Quit dancing in your 1985 Walmart sweatshirt. How did I come out of that? Also, it's cocoa season. If I only had a muskox. Wow, what a roller coaster.
Yeah.
Take 2. 3, skipping family Thanksgiving to eat at a Cracker Barrel is the way to go. No cleanup, no kids, and no family. Best Thanksgiving day in years. Insert instead of Cracker Barrel live read here.
You had Thanksgiving all on your own this weekend. Did you like that?
No. We actually all spent it together. There was an issue with a boyfriend-girlfriend situation in the family. Nothing crazy, just a little argument. So the son came over and delayed the plans to go to Illinois for all of us, and we all spent Thanksgiving together, and it was awesome.
Awesome.
And then T went down the next day.
Okay.
To Illinois, so I had to stay with the dog.
which you did not mind. You act like you had to stay with the dog.
Listen, man,
nice try.
listen, sometimes you have to sacrifice things, Graham.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, it's marriage. You have to sacrifice, you know?
Let me stay here and watch football.
Listen, I will do it.
Yeah.
I will watch that dog. Hey, she's still alive. Ghost of George Perlis next. Number 1, in all of the history of football, more games are won by taking the field goal than going for it on 4th down. 2, the Michigan win will be validation for the cheating. And 3, more likely, Ryan Day will be gone before Harbooger.
I still think Harbaugh is more likely gone. I would bet a lot that he's not back next year.
NFL?
Yeah.
Bears.
They've done enough. Yeah, Bears. I can't say Bears out loud, though, because Dominic would get pissed at me. But Bears or somebody else.
I think you wouldn't mind Harbaugh.
He would.
I wouldn't mind. If
Dominic
Harbaugh
will.
coached the Lions, yeah, maybe. I don't know. If he coached the Lions, I don't think I would give a shit. As long as we won and we were winning. But,
yeah, he's such an annoying prick. Like it's
yes.
I mean, that's the thing. I just don't want people who I have to root for being like, and I understand it may not all be his fault. Kind of born with it in some ways, but
he was born with what?
I'm not going to say.
Hans Jurgen. Number 1, if Jonathan Smith doesn't win, I will confront him on Twitter or X or whatever the fuck this is. 2, I watch all 60 minutes of every MSU football game this year. I still had hope when they were down 13-0 to Penn State. I even bet on them to win. Is something wrong with me? Yeah. 3, Smith should spend the next 3 months visiting the Midwestern high school football coaches, plying them with steaks, alcohol, cigars, weed, whatever it takes. Bonus. Go Blow beating OSU shows that life isn't fair and Satan is real.
Yeah, throw some Muskox flannels for all the Michigan high school coaches and the Ohio high school coaches. Make sure they're comfortable. Make sure they know they came from you, Jonathan Smith. Yeah, look, there are a lot. I know that Michigan game for a lot of Michigan State fans, it's a gut punch because they're as good as they've ever been. They're as good as I've ever seen them, and they've got a real shot at winning a national title this year. And that makes it. At least if you're an MSU fan, though, you have a new coach. You have something new to build on and to build from.
And finally, the jerk guy, upper deck jerk guy. Number 1, if Smith doesn't go to a bowl in his first year, that's it. Move on. 2, Izzo needs to figure out how to coach in the fall instead of waiting until March. And 3, same old Thanksgiving Lions.
See, I think it's the opposite. There were so many years that the Lions sucked, but they were good on Thanksgiving.
Do you know how many times the Lions have won on Thanksgiving since 2000?
How many times?
6 times.
That's not a lot.
Out of 23?
I guess I'm thinking about the 90s.
Jesus, man.
I just go back to the 90s.
Constantly getting kicked in the balls.
Yeah, it's not great. Yeah. I'm just glad I'm still glad they have the Thanksgiving Day game. That was a shit performance.
Yeah.
That was not great. We appreciate all of you for producing our show, for all of the hot takes. I'm probably going to do something a little different with the hot takes where I send it out in like a Google form at some point, but I'll let you know, and that'll come through Twitter. It'll come through Facebook. You'll still have ways to get it, just like now. We'll if we do that differently. We appreciate Midtown Brewing Company. Go to midtownbrewing.net to check out their menu and beer selection, or just swing on by 402 South Washington Avenue in downtown Lansing. We appreciate Muskox. Go to gomuskox.com. Take advantage of their Black Friday deals still going on. The more flannels you buy, the more you save. Enjoy the comfort. Enjoy everything. We'll be back probably Wednesday after Michigan State's men's basketball game and the Jonathan Smith presser. Good show, man.
Yeah, man.
Couch in the Room.